DC United. Be there for the return. Be there for the energy. Be there for the hustle. Get your tickets today at HoustonDynamo.com and be a part of the next chapter of soccer in Houston.
Straight Talk Wireless presents Pickup Truck Wisdom.
Trust is earned. That's why I've stuck with Straight Talk. Same price since 2009 on Verizon's 5G network. Cause shoot, anyone can make a promise. Keeping it for years, that means something.
Now plans starting at $25 a month with 4 lines. Find us at StraightTalk.com and Walmart. Straight Talk Wireless. Straightforward. Always. Same price claim applies only to the base monthly price of our $45 plan from October 2009 to present.
Yes, JCPenney's Power Penny Week is back. Through July 19th, get can't-miss deals. Plus, join Rewards Access today, and you can get a $10 cash pass. Learn more at /rewards. Yes, JCPenney. Exclusions apply.
How do airplanes fly? What's in this box? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Learn how to store your gun securely and make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Just the fact that these guys and with Messi can come back and you can never really rule them out of a match. And so that in and of itself makes it compelling. It's either an all-time great, having a clear and obvious all-time great moment, or you have to just kind of wait there until the end just to see if he's going to be able to pull it out.
So we go from the greatness of your mom turning 67, we go to the greatness of Messi, and now we go to the dreck that are the Houston Astros. And I get it, right? You could look at the standings and you could say, oh, they're only out 4 games in the AL West. They're only out 3.5 in the wild card. I also do some shows up in Boston, too, inside the Odyssey family for EEI. And it wasn't that long ago where everyone thought that the Boston Red Sox were dead, and they've won 12 games in a row, and they've totally turned their season around. So inside the AL, it's very easy to turn your season around. But with what we saw yesterday, this is just a lifeless baseball team to come out of the, and you're going up against a team in the Baltimore Orioles that's similar to you. They're on the same playing field as you in terms of how their season's going. To lose the first 2 games, very disheartening. We'll see if they avoid the sweep today. But it just, when the bleeding starts, it just does not stop. And we know that this team is on the verge of being in the buyer conversation or the seller conversation. The pendulum now is shifting to them being sellers. But to see yesterday your shortstop and Jeremy Pena get banged up and have to leave the game, and then Christian Walker get banged up and have to leave the game. And I don't know if these are going to be long-term injuries or not. I would anticipate that they're not. But neither are in the lineup today. It's like, okay, even if the Astros determine that they need to sell B. Scott, well, are Pena and Walker going to be healthy enough to get them in position to sell?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, it feels like so many different wasted opportunities for the Astros in this season, right? You look at the mess of the American League that you're kind of alluding to, but instead of being able to take advantage of the American League being the mess that it is, the Astros are contributing to the mess. They are a part of said mess. And so it's really disappointing, especially when you consider that it seemed like they're almost toying with the fan base a little bit, yo-yoing with the fan base, Zach, honestly, because they start off atrocious, make you want to count them out and think that they don't even have a chance. And then since May 21st, if you look at it, let's say for the last 3 games that they've lost, right? If you go from May 21st to just the last couple of days, they were one of the better teams in the American League, right? They had won just a couple of weeks on the back for winning like 6 of their last 7 series and kind of counting it like that. And now the update to that 2 weeks later is that they've lost their last 3 series. If you go back to the Nationals and the Rangers before the All-Star break, and then, of course, losing these first 2 games post-All-Star break against the Baltimore Orioles, and we'll see what happens today, whether they get swept. But either way, they lose the series after losing the first 2 games. And so the vibes have kind of just gone completely in the opposite direction in terms of what they were looking like a couple of weeks ago and the trajectory that it looked like that they were on. I can say that I'm pretty sure that knowing Jim Crane and knowing how they operate, they're still probably going to be buyers, even if they're delusional buyers, but it does not give you a whole lot of optimism based off of how they're playing right now.
Yeah, there is nothing tangible that I could hold my hands on right now with this baseball team and make me think that they're actually going to be in the postseason come the end of the year. Now, like, the only way that we could actually say that this team is going to be in the postseason is just because the state of the AL is not good. So if they could find a way to be average here in the second half of the season, average will get you into the postseason. You just got to be hovering around 500. But yesterday with Zach DeZenzo at the end of the game, a back-and-forth game, right? Like all the craziness, the small ball that was being played, wild bounces that did occur, some fortuitous bounces that went in the direction of the Astros, some went in the direction of the Orioles. When that ball gets away from the catcher and it's the last out of the game, you got to run your ass. You got to move your fanny over to first base. And the fact that he just slowly walked back to the dugout, it's what made him now so unlikable. Because it's one thing to be bad, it's one thing to be struggling, but when you're not fighting it out to literally the final out and you're not grinding and you're not showing some moxie and some toughness, that makes them an unlikable team. And it makes a fan say, hey, where's this team going? Maybe they should just sell and start thinking about the future.
Well, it's also odd for a fan because it's actually somewhat uncharacteristic of what they've actually been throughout the season. Like, this is a new thing, especially the last few games. Like, what's special about the way they've lost these last few games, they've either tied or led in the 8th inning of the last 3 games that they lost. And they still found a way to lose them, or at least did not find a way to win them. And before that, the thing that you could hang your hat on with the Astros is that they would get off the mat, is that they would fight. Kind of similar how I was talking about Messi earlier. Like you can rely or could rely on the Astros to at least be in it toward the end of the game. And this has been the last few games the exact opposite. I mean, the big story here is that they're running out of time, Zach. Like they're running out of time. We can only but for so long as either a fan base or as a media or as just a general public do the whole 1 of 162. It's still early. They've still got time. Well, 1 of 162 feels a lot heavier the further you get into it. Once you get post All-Star break, once you start approaching the trade deadline and you're trying to figure out exactly what you are. And the reality is for the Astros, whether you want to be optimistic or not, they are running out of time for optimism. They are running out of time to just kind of play mid baseball the way that they have over the past couple of months. They've got to go on a run, and it doesn't seem like they've got enough things working for them in concert. It's like they'll do one thing well at a time, but they won't do enough things well at once to actually be a good baseball team, and that's been their issue this year. It's the reason why they're below 500.
And the big conundrum is this is a year, because of the state of the AL, there's not going to be a lot of buyers. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of sellers. So if you are a buyer, you could get more than what you would get in, let's say, previous years, because there is more of a demand for people to buy, but the supply is not high because there's not a lot of teams selling. And I look at this organization, you got a manager on the final year of his contract in Joe Espada. You got a general manager in Dana Brown on the final year of his contract as well. I don't know about you, B. Scott, but if I knew I was on the verge of getting fired, or if I didn't have my contract solidified for future years, I'm not trying to help this team out in future years and do what's in the best decision for the franchise a year or 2 or 3 years now. I'm trying to save my job right now. So in a world where I look at this from afar and I say, hey, I haven't seen anything that makes me believe that they should be buyers, I think they actually will be buyers, because you got a desperate general manager and you got a desperate manager that are trying to keep their jobs.
Yeah, well, let's be honest about this, Zach. I don't know if it's just them trying to keep their jobs as much as it is them auditioning for their next one, right? Fair. Because I don't honestly know where Dana Brown or Joe Espada is truly auditioning for his job. That there's something that this team, the way we're talking about them right now, that there's something that they can realistically do to save their jobs right now. I mean, think about it. With the Astros, we've seen far more successful managers either be forced out or outright fired from this organization just in the last 6 or 7 years or so. A.J. Hinch won a World Series. Of course, we understand what happened there.
Yeah, the scandal.
But also, after the 22 World Series, there was a similar situation. Lame duck contract for James Click, the general manager at the time. They win the freaking World Series.
And still not brought back.
And this guy is not brought back. What do you think these guys' future is going to look like after back-to-back seasons of not going to the postseason if they don't make it this year? In 2024, if we want to be honest about it, I mean, they barely make it, they back their way into it, and then they get swept at home by the Tigers. You can almost not even count that. So that's what this regime has been. It's been an utter failure when you compare it to the other ones before that. I think Jim Crane also has a role in that as well. Like, I think there's some accountability to be held at the owner's feet as well. But as far as him, like, writing the checks and deciding who works here, I think these guys are not just trying to necessarily save their jobs, but they're trying to audition for the next one and put their best foot forward for the next interview that they have.
Yeah, and maybe you could create it if you're like a Dana Brown or a Joe Espada. And Espada's a popular name in baseball, and we've been hearing a lot about him even before he got the manager, him getting a manager job somewhere else. But you look at that, they could probably blame a lot of this on Jim Crane, and that's why I think he's really going to ultimately decide if they do buy or sell from now into the deadline. But if I was Brown and if I was Espada, I'm not sitting there trying to give up, because even though I think it's trending that both aren't back next year and both will be gone with this franchise, it's like I'm going to go down swinging instead of just basically saying, okay, I'll go do what's in the best interest for the franchise right now and trade Jeremy Pena and trade Christian Walker. And I think those decisions are going to be interesting. Like, if Jim Crane goes to them and says, hey, guys, we need to sell. We're not really in this. Even if we get into the postseason, I don't see this being successful. It'll be an early departure from the postseason, even if they get in. Like, they got to figure out right now they're going to get a long-term deal done with Jeremy Pena. You know, Walker's an older player, got a little year, some time left on that contract. But like I said, to open up the show, there's going to be a lot of buyers because the AL stinks. And the teams selling are going to be low. Like the Rockies will sell in the NL. The Mets will sell in the NL. But outside of that, there's not going to be a lot of sellers. And Pena, that's going to be a big name. Like at Fanatics Fest in New York City, Alex Rodriguez is doing an interview with WFAN. And he's like, hey, the New York Yankees got to go trade for Jeremy Pena, which I know will make a lot of people barf into a bag when you hear the Yankees and the Astros making a trade. The Boston Red Sox could be looking for a shortstop as well. And I know the Red Sox and Astros aren't all warm and fuzzy either. There could be a big bidding war for Jeremy Pena. And if you don't feel like you're going to give him a extension and keep him here with this franchise, then you got to do what's in the best interest of this team, and that's to give up on a player who's had a lot of success here.
Yeah, I know the frustrating part for a lot of Astros fans has to be that the Astros honestly don't seem to have much of an appetite for paying Jeremy Pena or for trading Jeremy Pena. Like, they want to. I don't know if they want to, but they definitely are living in between these two worlds, in between these two realities where you have to pay your homegrown talent and actually go all in on your homegrown talent, or make that tough decision to let them go, kind of similar to what they just did with Kyle Tucker the year before. And so, that's like the elephant in the room, right? They're not trading Yordan Alvarez, the franchise guy, but the next closest thing, the World Series MVP, the young Gold Glove level shortstop, like that's the one. That's the guy that's going to get them the most back. And that's not even to get into a conversation about what the baseball nerds think about about the Astros farm system and what their prospects actually look like. Like they could stand a reset, but they don't seem to really have the appetite to do that. This is their leadoff hitter. It's a top-heavy lineup. And we're talking about an American League that can be had. When you've only got about 4 to 5 guys in your lineup that you actually believe in, and you're looking around the American League and feel like you could actually make a run because nobody is impressive, and I don't think we can stress that point enough, how unimpressive the American League as a whole, not just the Astros, but the American League as a whole is. The reason why a lot of a bit delusional and trick themselves into thinking that they're really in this thing, you could see the Astros being that exact team where they stand pat and they don't trade Jeremy Pena because they feel like they need him to make a run, and I can understand that. But to your point, what's best for the franchise, they got to start going down that road. They got to start going down that road because they're not going to pay this guy, and they don't really have like clear stars in their farm system to replace him.
Well, that's the thing. If they are not going to pay him, they need to get rid of him. Like, that's the bottom line. It's almost like, and I could say this now because I've lost a lot of weight through the years. But when I first tried to lose weight, and I was like a fat lard, and I'd be like, oh, I want to lose weight. And then I would go eat McDonald's. Well, you're not really trying to lose weight then. It's like the Astros, they want to be competitive again. They don't have a good farm system. Oh, we have Jeremy Pena who could get us back a lot of prospects, but we don't really want to pay him. So what, you're just going to let this contract run out? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. And especially, and again, it really comes down to the oddity of this year and the fact that they're able to dilute themselves or make themselves delusional into thinking that maybe they're better than what they are, or that their chances are better than what they are. But it goes to the point of who is thinking about the long-term health of the franchise? Is that the lame duck general manager who might not be here several months from now?
Nope.
Where is the owner's mind at? Like, those are the relevant questions that Astros fans need to be asking.
And right now, I think that this is a franchise without direction, and it's not surprised that you're in this spot when you have a GM manager that are on the final years of their contract, and they're in a lame duck spot. And that's the thing. Like, Rafael Devers is going to be made available with the Giants. I would rather have Jeremy Pena than Rafael Devers. So I think Pena is a name that's going to get a robust return. But the question just becomes, are the Astros going to be willing to trade him? And right now, I would say it's probably more so a no than a yes, and that's just in line with the confusion that's with this franchise. He's Brandon Scott. I'm Zach Gelb, right here, Sports Radio 610 in Houston. We are on today until 3. Warren Moon going to stop by coming up at 1:25. We'll move off the Astros just for a little bit. And when we come on back, is C.J. Stroud, he's had a lot of criticism this offseason. Are we getting to a level where it's just straight up disrespect for what he's accomplished so far in his young NFL career? We're coming on back. Brandon Scott, Zach Gelb here on a Sunday afternoon on Sports Radio 610.
In the loop.
The Astros are at the All-Star break, so how are you feeling about them being buyers versus sellers? I feel like they can't even really be buyers.
$9,900. 800-738-9900. Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
Alrighty, welcome back in. It's Sports Radio 610 Weekends. B. Scott, Zach Gelb here with you. We'll take you up until 3. Warren Moon going to stop by. We'll get into about DJ Stroud with the Pro Football Hall of Famer. And B. Scott, when the season ended with C.J. Stroud, I thought the criticism was fair about him. Like, we all know what he's done for this franchise. They were in the absolute outhouse. He comes in. You know, I haven't been in the penthouse, but they're in like a 4-star resort. They're going back to the postseason. They've won a postseason game each and every year. But we know how the last 2 years ended with this franchise. A bad offense is showing up against Kansas City, where the defense played well. in the first half, and then you do get to last year. I was at that game at Gillette Stadium where C.J. Stroud, he was just allergic to making sure that the Texans held on to the football in that one, and the Texans defense kept them in the game as long as they can. But now this NFL Top 100 list did come out. I would have thought that if Bryce Young was going to make it, that C.J. Stroud would make it as well. It's not as if I view C.J. Stroud as an elite quarterback, but the more and more names that we come on out, the more and more that I just go, yeah, the league is really out on C.J. Stroud because he's not going to make this list.
Yeah, well, not only did he not make the NFL Top 100, or it looks like he's not going to make the Top 100, but also that list that ESPN did where they polled the executives and coaches and the scouts from around the league to rank the top 10 quarterbacks. He was nowhere to be found on that list, wasn't even mentioned as an honorable mention, and kind of barely got a also receiving votes at the end. And I think when you combine these two ideas, so the top 100 is the player voted, right? It's the players voting on their peers, and then this ESPN thing is the executives and the scouts. So that's pretty much everybody from around the league, polled all at once you take it kind of all together, and he's not in the top 10 of his position in this one poll, and then he's not considered a top 100 player amongst his peers. It makes you look at it and say that the entire league has kind of changed its opinion on him. And I think that it's fair to criticize C.J. Stroud. I don't know how you wouldn't after a playoff performance like the one that he had. I mean, even the game that he had that they won was not one to write home about. And then they go out there and end the season the way that they did, where it feels like the criticism has turned disrespectful and like it's just gone way too far, just to be honest about it. It's like Bryce Young ahead of him. I mean, what are we doing? Bryce Young ahead of him, I guess based off of 1 year, as if these guys have not played 3 seasons in the NFL. Like, I just don't know how you arrive at that place. So I think there is fair criticism on C.J. Stroud, but if you ask me if we're at a fair place right now, I think it's going too far. It's going a little bit overboard.
Yeah, so the top 10 list by the executives, I could understand why he didn't get a sniff on that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be irate about that. The top 100 list, I don't think it's absurd that he's not in it, but when you see a quarterback like Bryce Young in it right out of the jump, I would have thought with what Stroud has accomplished so far that he would at least get the tiebreaker, even if Bryce Young is starting to close some ground on the big sprint and the big lead that C.J. Stroud got out to. So it's a little surprising how he didn't make the top 100 list, but I'm not totally shocked make the top 100 list. But you go into the season, and we talk about the Astros having no direction. We know the Texans are a team that defensively, with Will Anderson and Derek Stingley and Daniil Hunter, that defense is going to be at 100. And that's one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL. And that defense is Super Bowl caliber. But you look at the offense, the guy at the quarterback position is someone that has a major question mark where how do you even rate what C.J. Stroud is? Like, he's not a bad quarterback. He's not a below-average quarterback, but is he average? Is he good? Is he very good? Is he great? Where on B. Scott's scale do you have C.J. Stroud going into the season on how you view him as a quarterback? Because the rest of the league is saying right now, like, yeah, he's fine, but he's not anything that you need to have.
No, I think right now that I would have him as good, not great. The problem with the criticism is that the league seems to almost be saying that he's not even good. That's where the disrespect for me comes in. I don't think that he's great. I think at this point, I think he's got the potential to be great, and he's got some traits that would make you think that he could be great. But could you look at the last couple of years and honestly say that what you've seen has been great? No, absolutely. So it's a prove-it year for C.J. Stroud when you talk about the contract, when you talk about just the conversation about him as a quarterback. But, Zach, the only reason why I point out that ESPN poll or the top 10 thing is because of what we're kind of just talking about, the trajectory of his career at this point. Like, think about this, Zach. If you were to flip-flop, you're number 1, number 3, he's on that list of top 10 quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's on that list. Like, if you had done this and even had, the body of work of just what last year was, even with the disappointment of last year, and just leave that middle year, the 2024 year right there, then he's on that list. I mean, he was the offensive rookie of the year, and he finished top 8 in MVP voting that year as a rookie. And so that's just to speak to how far he's fallen in such a short amount of time to go from top 8 in MVP voting and the offensive rookie of the year and a Pro Bowler and kind of this kind of like new sensation to not even thought of as a top 10 quarterback or a top 10 guy at his own position and out of the top 100 entirely. That is drastic. That is a lot. And I think that is a more drastic punishment than what his actual decline has been. I can acknowledge that it hasn't been over the last couple of years exactly what it was the rookie year, but I don't think the fall has been as drastic as the conversation and the view on him has been. But to answer your question, is he a great quarterback? Can you say he's great with a straight face? And honestly, absolutely not. Not right now. Not right now.
And you got a few things here that are working against him. They're going to the destination of that contract extension, and if it came out tomorrow that he got $55 million a year, I think the league would be laughing at him. You're also moving in the direction that the Texans have been restored as a franchise where they're in these games where everyone's parachuting in, that they may not watch the Texans the first 15 weeks of the season. Then you see them in the postseason, and it's like, uh-oh, this is really ugly. And that's the part where, yes, to a credit to C.J. Stroud, to a credit to DeMeco Ryans, to a credit to Will Anderson, this organization is back in the mix. And you look at the imbalance that's going on with this organization right now, where the defense is a defense that just like Seattle, and then you probably have Texans fans sitting there and saying, wait, Seattle just won the Super Bowl. We saw New England go to the Super Bowl, and I get it that Drake May had a great regular season where he was runner-up for the MVP, but he wasn't good in the postseason. So you see the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. It's not like either one of their quarterbacks in the postseason were phenomenal. Those were two teams that got to the Super Bowl because of their defenses, and Texans fans are sitting there saying, wait, we got just as good, if not better, defenses than New England and then also Seattle. But the quarterback right now can't give you, even though he's good in the regular season, he can't give you game manager average stuff in the postseason, which ends up being their detriment.
Well, the big disappointment, like aside from the opportunity cost of losing in that position, is that if C.J. Stroud played to the level and the standard that he actually played in the regular season, which was honestly a ho-hum, somewhat underwhelming C.J. Stroud, but he did a decent enough job of taking care.
Would have been good enough.
Would have been good enough. He did a decent enough job of taking care of the ball and mitigating risk, and all of that went out the window in both postseason games, both the one that they won and the one that they lost. If he just does that enough, much less to speak of a different quarterback if he plays in that way. So I think that part is somewhat just disappointing, and you have to hold C.J. Stroud accountable for that point blank period. But then beyond that, I do have to say, and this is not to make excuses because I just told you what the issue is with C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think the examples that you mentioned, Seattle with Sam Darnold and the infrastructure that they had there, they could run the ball worth a damn. They could pass block. They could run block. They had the requisite weapons. Oh, by the way, they had an offensive coordinator that you believe in Clint Kubiak, who's now a head coach, who went on and got a head coaching job off of that, right? Josh McDaniels over in New England is actually doing the version of the offense that the Texans are trying to do here with Nick Caley and C.J. Stroud, but sort of not necessarily the originator, but the one who does it much better than that, right? So, like, you look at their situations, not just the overall organization, but offensively specifically. They got better coordinators, they got better offensive lines, they got the better weapons. And here's C.J. Stroud with no running game, with a rookie offensive coordinator, his second offensive coordinator in 3 years, and is supposed to kind of make lemonade out of the lemons. And it hasn't just has not shown that he's to that level that he can make up for the surroundings that are around him.
The Seattle one I could give you, the New England one I can't. And I understand your point on the offensive coordinator, but New England's, and I'm a Patriot fan, the offense one was horrible.
Fair enough.
Their run game was solid. Like, Ramondre Stevenson's a good running back. Travion Henderson is going to be a dude down the road, but not in the moment. But the Patriots didn't have these tremendous wide receivers last year. Now, I know Nico Collins was hurt for the postseason game, and I love Nico Collins, and it was nice to see him get his due back-to-back years on this top 10 list, being in the top 10. But I got to see C.J. Stroud, yes, be a game manager, but not be the reason why they lose. Because you look at Drake May, and I know it wasn't the case in the postseason, but in the regular season, he elevated that team and played great football where, quite frankly, I thought he should have won the MVP. And what Drake May has done in his first year and a half in the league, with not the greatest surrounding environment with him, I don't see why C.J. Stroud can't do that. And you made a great point where if C.J. Stroud would have had his first year as the third year, everyone would have a totally different view of C.J. Stroud. But I do wonder if that earlier, success got to C.J. Stroud a little bit, because I've been around C.J. twice. I've had good conversations with him. I interviewed him one-on-one, then also interviewed him at the Heisman. And he seems like a guy that is just all football, not the stardom. And I think once he had that rookie season, it just like got to a point where, remember that game up against the Bears, Caleb Williams' rookie year, where he's giving him advice like C.J. Stroud is Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. It's like, dude, you played 1 year. You and Caleb Williams and C.J. Stroud, you guys are like the same age. You're like the same guys. It'd be like if I got here, B. Scott, and after doing one show with you, continue to go through the grind, you're going to understand what it is. It's like we're on the same playing field here. Like, well, what are you doing? And that moment, since it kind of became captured and everyone has kind of run with it, it's one of those moments where you go, was that really it for C.J. Stroud? Because since then, I think he needs to be the one getting advice from a lot of other quarterbacks in the league, not being the one that gives it. Yeah, it's no doubt that the trajectory has changed since that moment that you're talking about. And I even defended that moment because I thought, at the time, C.J. Stroud was noticeably more accomplished than Caleb Williams, who was only playing his second NFL game, and C.J. Stroud had just come off a historic rookie season. He was already a Pro Bowler. As I mentioned before, he had just finished top 8 in MVP voting. For a guy that had only had 1 year in the league, he was fairly accomplished. So I thought in the moment he was actually qualified to give the guy advice despite them being around the same age. But I can't do nothing with the results since then, right? Like he has certainly been humbled since that moment, I believe. And I don't know if he really intended for it to come off the way that it did. But either way, it has not been the same since then. And I think the issue is that they're trying to recapture that. He is a bit of a prisoner of his own success, both in terms of, I think, like how he's viewed publicly, but even maybe a little bit how he viewed himself, right? Like, had this instant arrival and has not been able to match that or capture that ever since, and is still trying to this moment. And the other part about this 3 years, C.J. Stroud have this incredible rookie season. The next year, he's fallen off people's lists. Jaden Daniels, right, had this incredible rookie season, then gets hurt, has fallen off people's lists. And I get it, Drake May, it was his second season, but it was his first true season as a starter. He had this incredible first full season as a starter, and now it's like, okay, that spot that was for CJ 3 years ago became Jaden Daniels' spot. Then that spot for Jaden Daniels ended up becoming Drake May's spot. And we're going to see in the AFC with these young quarterbacks who's going to be able to hold on to that spot moving forward, because so far in the AFC or the NFC, whether it's Stroud or whether it's Daniels, those three guys have been the guy that have been anointed, and it's been 1 year journeys for Jaden Daniels and also for C.J. Stroud. I mean, look at the list of guys that have passed him up, right? Guys that have been drafted. You just gave them right there. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, obviously, and then the guy in his own draft class, in Bryce Young, being mentioned on the NFL Top 100, and it looks like he's not going to make it. I mean, that's 4 quarterbacks right there who either weren't in the league when he did his thing as a rookie or weren't considered nearly at the level as he was at that time, who have now passed him up. And they're in a crucial point, and I talked about this last week with Luke, where I said if Baker Mayfield doesn't get that deal done with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, maybe it's just time to move off of CJ and you give Baker a 3-year contract to try to go chase that ring because, the defense is good enough. I'm sure they'll monitor Joe Burrow, maybe his displeasure that could be brewing with the Cincinnati Bengals or as a stay with the Baltimore Ravens. But you walk into this year, it's a big prove-it spot. It's a make-or-break year for C.J. Stroud, not only with the contract, with the finances, but also his staying power with this organization. Where is it just going to be the Texans where they get in the postseason, they win one game, and they go home, or are they going to be able to elevate quickly and be a team that's playing on Super Bowl Sunday? Because B. Scott, I'll sound like a broken record player. This defense is Super Bowl legit. And if the quarterback could just be 85%, 80% of what he was his first year, they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl this season in L.A.
Dude, you're talking to the people of Houston, man. We felt that way already just this past year, right? They would have gone to the AFC Championship game to face Jarrett Stidham for a chance to go to the Super Bowl, which they have not done. Hadn't even been to the AFC Championship game for that matter. But, I mean, the opportunity cost is I think it's really still a sticking point for Texans fans. It's the reason why a lot of them are down on C.J. Stroud right now.
You want to know how bad it was for Stroud in that playoff game? And everyone knows he was just horrible. It goes without being said. I took my girlfriend to the game, and we were sitting like 10, 15 rows off the 50-yard line. And I'm a Patriot fan, so she's rooting for the Patriots. I'm rooting for the Patriots. And at halftime, she goes to me, "Why are you not happy?" And I go, "Why am I not happy?" And I got to be respectful here and remember, right, she's my girlfriend and not one of my buddies watching the games. I'm like, that quarterback for the Texans was awful. And the Patriots don't have a firm control of the game.
Yeah.
I was fearing in the second half that maybe the Pats were game because you saw a quarterback that was seeing ghosts in that divisional round. And even my girlfriend was like, don't worry, that other quarterback, he stinks right now. And she's not a football savant. She doesn't have a PhD in football like you and I do.
Yeah, and so when it comes to C.J. Stroud, I think even she could say, hey, I don't know if that's a $60 million quarterback, right? That's the question. Even if he's good, how good is he really? And he's rookie quarterback, rookie contract good. But is he $50, $55, $60 million plus a year good? And that's the question.
Yeah. Well, if I told my girlfriend that he could be in line to make $55 million, she'd probably be like, okay, then what do the actual good quarterbacks make? And I'd be like, well, that money. And she'd be like, ooh, that's an overpay. All right, he's B. Scott. I'm Zach Gelb. Sports Radio 610 Weekends. When we come on back, I want to get back into this defense, and I want to talk about how great Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are, and I'm curious where they're going to land on the NFL Top 100 list.
Payne and Pendergast.
Non-quarterbacks. If you could pick 1 to 10.
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
That's what I'm talking about. It's Sports Radio 610 Weekend. Zach Gell, B. Scott here with you. The Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon going to stop by at 1:25. You can follow me on social media on Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. You can get B. Scott at Brandon K. Scott. That's where you can find us both and interact with us before we get on out of here at 3 p.m. today. We open up the show talking about the Astros. Are they going to be buyers? Are they going to be sellers? They should be playing into a world where they are sellers right now. But with this Frank Brown and also Joe Espada in the final year of their contract, we don't know if they actually will be. Pena got dinged up yesterday. Walker did as well. Neither in the lineup, but they are on the verge of getting swept by the Orioles. We'll see if they could salvage this series today before they go and play the Marlins, who are a surprisingly good baseball team. So it's not like you usually see the Marlins, you go, that's an easy spot to get right. That's not going to be the case this year. B. Scott, at the top of the hour, we'll get into this Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson conversation that I want to get to. But real quickly, it's like you look at the Texans, Nico Collins, the top 10 wide receiver. We've been talking about this, how the defense is ready to win, but the offense isn't. Can C.J. Stroud just be average? Can he be a game manager? I look at David Montgomery, who they brought in. I thought that was a good move. I'm curious to see what Woody Marks could do with more on his plate. Like, I'm a big fan of his. But you look at the rest of this offense, and you look at the wide receivers with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. It's like, okay, what's the next step for them? But I go back to a few years ago. I didn't think about this until today. Them missing out on Saquon Barkley, I think really did hurt this franchise, because Barkley was clear when he had free agency and he knew his run with the Giants was coming to an end, that Saquon was heavily courted and heavily pursued by the Texans. Then he ultimately goes down the turnpike from New York to Philadelphia to kind of stick it to the Giants, and he goes and wins a league MVP and a Super Bowl championship with the Philadelphia Eagles. But could you imagine if maybe the Eagles didn't bite, or maybe if the price was too rich and you had Saquon Barkley with the Texans? Like, he's the face of this offense. And it's like, all right, C.J. Stroud, life would have been even easier for him to not screw it up.
Yeah, I think that. So, look, it goes without saying that getting Saquon Barkley, he was the crown jewel of that free agency class. They would have been better off with Saquon Barkley. I just want to start there. But I don't think Saquon Barkley would have solved all of their issues, right? Like, I don't think Saquon Barkley,
because of the line.
Yeah, because of the line, because of everything around it, right? The offensive coordinator. I mean, they end up going to, if it come to Houston, he goes to an offense where the offensive line is bad, and the offensive coordinator that year gets fired at the end of the year. He doesn't go to an Eagles franchise that's ready-made to win a Super Bowl by just adding him there. So I can tell you for sure Saquon Barkley is certainly glad that he made the decision that he ended up ultimately making. And honestly, the Texans were fine with what they ended up doing that year with Joe Mixon. Just the expiration date on that ended up being way earlier than they were expecting it to be. But Joe Mixon was phenomenal for them in 2024. He was a Pro Bowl running back for them. I talked earlier about making lemonade out of lemons. I mean, this guy had one of the worst offensive lines in football and still had a 1,000-yard season, a Pro Bowl season, and they still couldn't do anything with it. Now, they had health issues. Again, they had an offensive coordinator that they ended up firing at the end of the year. It just kind of all went to hell by the end of it. But, like, you fast forward to now, would I like to have, like, 2 years later, when Joe Mixon has a mysterious injury and misses an entire season, and then his team, and then now your number one running back is David Montgomery, with no disrespect to David Montgomery, who I think is a good running back and I got a lot of respect for, but that's not Joe Mixon, and that's certainly not Saquon Barkley. So to your point, I definitely like to have Saquon Barkley in the mix. A big question for the Texans in 2026 is not just the quarterback, but who are the non-Nico Collins weapons on the team? I mean, that's a question that remains to be answered.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like you bring up Saquon and you look at his destination that he did ultimately go to. The Eagles' defense is awesome. We know the Texans' defense is awesome. Offensively, the Eagles' offensive line runs circles around the Houston Texans' offensive line. At the time, the Eagles' wide receivers run circles around the Texans' wide receivers with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now it's going to be Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon. even the tight end spot. Dallas Goedert's a good tight end. You look at the running back spot, it got Saquon Barkley. And look how now we talk about that top 10 list. Jalen Hurts has been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl MVP. He was ranked 17th on the list. So the point I'm illustrating is this. We talk about a quarterback that's been disrespected like Jalen Hurts. You talk about C.J. Stroud. We're trying to figure out where is the level of respect. Like, is the disrespect that's happened this offseason fair? Is it unfair? I understand the conversation. He was absolutely horrendous in the playoff game, but it's like, look at all the dogs that I mentioned on the Eagles offense, and it's like, okay, in Houston, you got Nico Collins. Love him. Top 10 wide receiver. Big fan of Nico Collins. But outside of that, what do you help your young quarterback out if there is a lack of belief in Philly with Jalen Hurts? It's like, look at the pieces that they've put around him. In Houston, it's like, all right, there's a lack of belief in C.J. Stroud. Where are the rest of your dogs outside of Nico Collins on the offensive side of the ball?
Zach, it is a question that I have been asking, even going back to OTAs and minicamp throughout the summer, like when we got an opportunity to talk to Nick Caley and talk to the coaches and kind of do all the press availability. I've asked the question, where are the explosive plays going to come from? Because we're talking about a personnel issue, but if we just look at just the flat-out data or the evidence from last year, there weren't a lot of this was not an explosive offense. So it's like it's not an explosive offense that lacks explosive players. So where do the explosive plays come from? Right? Like just following the train of logic here. Like they're not taking a lot of risks. They're just trying to hold on to the football. Oh, but they got a quarterback who might or might not do that. Oh, they don't have a lot of weapons. Like outside of Nico Collins, where is it going to come from? I think you mentioned the names, the second-year wide receivers out of Iowa State, the Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel combination. Like somebody between the two of those guys, if not both of them, have to emerge as real players and real factors for them. We have not mentioned Tank Dell in the mix of this, but training camp is coming up. That's going to be one of the guys that everybody's got their eye on to see what is he doing, how is he moving, is he fully participating in this question on these airwaves. Myself is, at what point is a little guy like that who's been injured going to be ready for violence again? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a relevant one. And if he is, that could change.
That's a sizzle player.
It is. That could change the dynamic.
Believing in him being healthy is the tough part, unfortunately, because Tank Dell's an easy guy to root for with all that he's had to go through.
Yeah,
but I can't rely on him. I can't walk into this season saying that Tank Dell is going to be a full, healthy, well-oiled machine like he was right when he got to the city of Houston. All righty, let's take a break here. It's B. Scott and Zach Gelb here with you on Sports Radio 610, doing a little weekends here with you on a Sunday. When we come on back, I want to get into this defense and look at it from a national stage, because we all think the world of Will Anderson. We all think the world of Danielle Hunter. Do the Houston Texans right now, and we'll see how they come out on this top 100 list, do they have 2 of the top 5 pass rushers in the NFL? We'll get to that on the other side. Also coming up in about 30 minutes at 1:25 today, we'll be talking to the Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon. B. Scott, Zach Gelb, Sunday afternoon in Houston, right here. Where else would you want to be? Sports Radio 610.
Texans training camp is just 2 weeks away. Are you ready? We are. KILT FM HD2 Houston on Odyssey Sports Station. The Texans play here. Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
That's right. You're tuned in to Sports Radio 610 on the weekends. It is a Sunday. Hour number 2 of our program will take you up until 3. Zach Gelb and Brandon Scott here with you. The Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon going to stop by 25 minutes from now. You got the World Cup final going on later today between Argentina and Spain. The Astros, they're going to see if they could salvage this series up against the Orioles. They lost once again yesterday in just heartbreaking fashion. In that game, you got Christian Walker, who got banged up. You also got Jeremy Pena banged up. You know that Dana Brown and Joe Espada are in the final year of their contracts. And we'll see what the Astros are now going to do from now until that August 3rd deadline, as there's not a lot of optimism, even though they're only 4 out of the West because the AL West stinks. They're only 3.5 out of the AL wild card final spot because the AL stinks. They're not really giving you a lot of reasons to make you believe that they could go on a run here in the second half of the season. And not only that, it's like, yes, what would be best for this franchise if they don't want to pay Jeremy Pena is to probably trade him, but with the guys that are running the show right now, I don't know how likely that will be. So we'll get back into the Astros later on in the show. We're rocking and rolling with the Texans. B. Scott, I don't know if you're a big gambling guy, but Ryan Fox, the Open Championship in golf, the 4th major of the year, his pre-tournament odds in some sports books were 201 to win the championship outright. He won the Open Championship today, just finding a way to edge out Cam Young, and he was 10 under for the tournament in Ryan Fox. So if you put money down on Ryan Fox, please find me on social media at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, because I want your betting insight.
Yeah, look, I'm not a gambling guy, but this makes me wish that I was, because I can do math, and I'm not a great math guy. But I get the math there, and I definitely wish that I had put some money down on this one. I wouldn't have known to do it, so I guess that's part of the charm of it. But, yeah, this would have been a good get.
Yeah, I love betting football, NFL, and college. Basketball, I don't like betting because you could be winning your bet the entire way, and then fouls happen in the final 2 minutes, and then you end up losing. Hockey is tough to bet, too. But the most random stuff I'll ever bet here or there are outright winners on, like, the Kentucky Derby or one of these 4 major golf, appearances, one of the 4 majors. And if you hit an outright winner there, it's like one of the great feelings because it's so tough when you have such a large field, whether it's horses or whether it's golfers, to find the guy that is the underdog, like a big-time underdog, and then you sometimes just get some good luck, and you end up winning a whole lot of do-re-mi.
Yeah, it would have been nice. Could have definitely used that extra cash flow for me, but no, I did not know ball enough in this way to make this announcement.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think many people did, but you'll always see someone that will emerge out of the woodworks to say that they won so much money and they put like beer and pizza money, I think as Nick Costas would say, down on someone like that. Alrighty, let's do this. So before we get into the Texans on the defensive side of the ball, and once again, the Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon's going to stop by at 125. I just want to pick up on where we left off with how the Texans, it feels like they need more than just Nico Collins in terms of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Is that a Nick Caserio problem? Because he's the guy that runs the team. We know he's done a really good job with this franchise. It's not me going after Nick Caserio, but I know where he comes from, and that's New England. And kind of the Patriots' way is to have the quarterback shine, play great defense, and the weapons weren't always great in New England. Like for the first wave of those Patriots Super Bowls, it was Troy Brown, Deion Branch, David Givens, David Patton. Sure, they got Corey Dillon, who was an exceptional running back. The second wave of championships, they had Julian Edelman. I know they drafted Rob Gronkowski, but it wasn't as ever if the Patriots had, outside of the year they got Randy Moss, an elite wide receiver in the offense. So I wonder, yes, Nico Collins is a top 10 wide receiver in this league, but how many teams now that have two dominant wide receivers? If maybe that's a little bit of an old approach that's showing true here in Houston, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, so it feels like it's kind of a new approach, though, or at least I would say that 2 years ago they approached it this way at all when they went out and traded for Stephon Diggs and traded a good bit to get him and guaranteed him some money as well. Like, they were aggressive 2 years ago. To your question, is that a Nick Caserio problem? It feels like it is over the last couple of years, and I don't know if it's for lack of trying or if it's just a failure in the effort that he made. Because think about it. Last year, he brings in Christian Kirk, a late-round pick trade for Christian Kirk, and I think with the legitimate thought that Christian Kirk was going to be their number 2 wide receiver, even though he was a slot guy, that because of experience and pedigree and what he had accomplished up to that point, that could be a decent number 2 to Nico Collins, and then they would have other guys around them to kind of to step up as well.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out at all the way that they were hoping. And then this year, it seems like they've kind of doubled down on that, or maybe even just doubled down on the idea that the younger guys are going to step up, kind of speaking to our earlier point about Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel and the need to see something from them. But, no, it's definitely underwhelming over the last couple of years. When you think about 2024, just go 2 years ago, and you have an offseason where, I know we're talking about offense, but you bring in Danielle Hunter, but on the offensive side of the ball, you trade for Stephon Diggs, you trade for Joe Mixon, and this is coming off that rookie year that C.J. Stroud had, the breakout year that Nico Collins had with C.J. Stroud, and, of course, Tank Dell was still healthy at that time. It felt like they were loading up. It felt like they couldn't get enough of weapons between what they were bringing in. And ever since then, I don't know. You tell me what you think. Do you think it's because that failed so miserably because they couldn't get everybody to stay healthy all at once that they went in the other direction on that? But it feels like they went all in 2024, and it's been very underwhelming in terms of their approach ever since then, just specifically when we're talking about the weapons around Nico Collins and C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, so they drafted Nico Collins, and they hit gold there. Like, he's phenomenal. I think what they're trying to do now is find their number 2 wide receiver through the draft. Like, I commend them when they made the move for Stephon Diggs, and unfortunately he just got hurt. But that wouldn't preclude me, when they should be in win-now mode because of how great this defense is, from getting that right this offseason. Like, why couldn't they have stolen Alec Pierce away in free agency from the Colts? I know A.J. Brown probably wouldn't have happened because it seemed as if he was zeroed in on the reunion with Mike Vrabel and going to the Patriots. I know that Brian Thomas Jr. was speculated to possibly be traded. You're probably not having a Jaguars-Texans deal with the young wide receiver, but I look at a guy like Alec Pierce. I would have liked them to throw a lot of cash at him. And you imagine having Nico Collins and Alec Pierce, those two big body wide receivers here in Houston. I would probably put the Texans in the AFC Championship game if they went out and got Alec Pierce this offseason, or even Jalen Waddle. Like, Jalen Waddle could have been had from the Dolphins, and it wasn't as if the Broncos gave away, like, really mortgaged their future to get him. Imagine if this Waddle, someone that has some more credibility in this league than just hoping that these wide receivers turn out to be the number two in their young careers.
Yeah, now you're speaking my language with the Jalen Waddle, and it's not just because he's a Houston area guy because he's from here. Like, I thought what Miami was doing in kind of tearing apart their team to shreds, and also Jalen Waddle's contract, like, I thought that was a much more reasonable and doable type of deal to make. Like, Alec Pierce got $100 million, $60 million guaranteed. Look, Alec Pierce is fast and dynamic. And I agree with you that if he's on this team, that you got to look at them a lot differently. I'm good on paying Alec Pierce $60 million, but Jalen Waddle, what effectively was a depreciated asset, I like the idea of that much more so than what it is that they're doing, which is risky. It could work. Like, let's be honest about this. Jaden Higgins in year 2 could work out. Like, Nico Collins was not an obvious star until C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans and this new regime showed up. And that's Nico Collins in year 3. Like, he played 2 years in the NFL, and no one had really ever heard of him because Davis Mills was his quarterback, and Lovie Smith and David Culley were his coaches, and nobody really cared. And so Jaden Higgins just perhaps has not come of age yet. Could be the same case with Jalen Noel as a much different type of, when I was talking about explosive earlier, like, he's a different type of dynamic player. Jaden Higgins is almost more of a Nico Collins clone. The idea of having two of those guys on the outside and a speedster like Jalen Noel is really intriguing, but they're asking a lot of these second-year guys to contribute and to be those explosive players that, to your point, they could have been more aggressive in going out there to get. The question is, how aggressive do you get? Like, do you go all in like you're suggesting and give $60 million guaranteed to Alec Pierce? Or do you try to find something along the margins, a depreciated asset like Jalen Waddle, who's on a much friendlier contract, but offers kind of a similar type of dynamic that, goes to a rival or at least an obstacle, a block in your pursuit of the AFC Championship game?
Yeah, and let me be abundantly clear here. I'm giving Nick Caserio a lot of credit for what he's done with this organization, navigating out of the mess that was Deshaun Watson, getting this team back to be a consistent postseason player, winning postseason games in each of the last 3 seasons. But we put all the blame now on C.J. Stroud, and that blame is valid. It's fair. He's been god-awful the last 2 postseasons. I'm not giving C.J. Stroud any out. He needs to be better, and he doesn't even need to be great. He just can't be the reason why they mess it up. But I'm just wondering here, like, at the end of the year, is the conversation more than Stroud? If the train doesn't get back to moving to newer heights and moving in the right direction, because you can look at this offense and you can say, like, yeah, Nico Collins is there. Like, sure, I like Montgomery and Woody Marks, but the offensive line the last few years hasn't really been solidified. They've made changes this offseason. If no number 2 wide receiver emerges, some people are going to be looking at Nick Caserio and saying, dude, you got to go back to being aggressive. You got to be like Les Snead and say, F them picks. You got to go for it because this defense is Super Bowl caliber, and you don't know how many shots that you're going to keep on getting to take here with the offense keeps on being the reason why they're getting let down.
Honestly, Zach, it's a shame that the offensive line, it's another reason why. It's a shame that the offensive line has been as bad as it's been because it's kind of masked the issue of the last couple of years, or we're going into year 2 with this being a legitimate question about these weapons. And where are the non-Nico explosive plays supposed to come from? Credit to Dalton Schultz for having a career year, or at least his best year as a Texan last season. They've at least got that. So they got a solid tight end. They've got a top 8, certainly top 10 wide receiver in Nico Collins. But after that, we talk about it here on the station all the time. They got a bunch of maybes. It's not that they're bad. It's just so apparently unclear, right? Like you don't know what to expect. And it could be a wide range of ho-hum, not really impressive at all, to, again, these breakout seasons that it's just hard to anticipate that these guys are going to have that. But eyes are on Jaden Higgins, a second-round pick, by the way. So eyes are on Jaden Higgins. You talk about Nick Caserio, use a second-round pick on a guy. He needs to be a real player for you, and that's not to mention all of the whiffs that he's made on the offensive line with high draft picks. You know, they just sent out a second-round center in Juice Scruggs over the season. They did that the previous offseason with Kenyon Green, a first-round offensive lineman. Point being, the offensive line has been such an unmitigated disaster that it has masked the fact that the last couple of years they've just asked C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins to go out there and do it with kind of a ragtag cast of characters around them. And so it's got to be much better than that. It's got to be much better than just Nico and the guys. They need one of these other guys to step up. It could even be Woody Marks, the running back who was ill-placed last year as their 3-down running back, which is not what he's supposed to be, but as a dual threat, as a guy that can catch passes out of the backfield, as a guy who can line up along with David Montgomery, not to suggest that he's Jahmyr Gibbs, but could have that sort of role in this offense. They need to be tapping in to all of that, which is why I look at Nick Caley, the offensive coordinator. I'm looking at this offensive line, and by proxy, Nick Caserio, the guy that put it together. And back to the conversation, these weapons and where are those explosive plays supposed to come from?
Get into the defense. The thing I'm most fascinated about with this NFL Top 100 list, since I think we could safely say now, barring some miracle, C.J. Stroud is not going to be on the list. I'm going to be fascinated to see how high up Will Anderson it will be and how high up Danielle Hunter will be. Last year, Danielle Hunter came in at 25th. Will Anderson came in at 46. I think Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are two best pass rushers in the NFL. Like, Myles Garrett is number one. I think he's going to be number one on this top 100 list this year. Aiden Hutchinson is a top 5 pass rusher. Micah Parsons, even coming off the injury, is a top 5 pass rusher. Will Anderson, like, those 4 guys are non-negotiables for me. Garrett, Hutchinson, Parsons, and Anderson need to be on your top 5 list just for pass rushers. And then I would put Danielle Hunter in the 5th spot. So that means, like, Nick Bonito, I have Danielle Hunter being better than. Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Brian Burns, Trey Hendrickson. Like, a lot of those guys are tremendous pass rushers, but it shows you how great this Texans defense is, where I don't think it's a far stretch to say that if they don't have 2 of the top 5 pass rushers in this NFL Top 100 list, that I'd be a little bit disappointed. I think that they'd be getting screwed in the national recognition that Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson should be getting.
I think you can fairly put both of those guys in the top 8 of pass rushers across the NFL. And this is like just without controversy. And we could even narrow it down and argue it to death as much as we want to. But I think as far as you're going to get before the argument just gets ridiculous if you were to leave either one of these guys out is about 8. I don't think you're going to get to 8 pass rushers in the NFL before you have named both of these guys, and they're probably closer to the top 6 or 7. But I'll leave room for 8, kind of to your point. I know I mentioned that ESPN poll from earlier in the week as well. They did this thing amongst the coaches, executives, and they've got them top 6, right? They've got only Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons coming ahead of of Will Anderson Jr. So they got Will Anderson Jr. as the 3rd best pass rusher in football. Max Crosby behind him, Aiden Hutchinson behind him, and then Danielle Hunter tapping in at number 6. I don't really have a huge problem with that list or that order. You can quibble with it, and you can reorder it all you want. But that's just to say these guys are somewhere in the top 6, 7, or 8 of all the pass rushers in football, and they are the reason why you can take the Texans seriously I think it starts with them, as to why you can take the Texans seriously as a Super Bowl contender, despite your questions about C.J. Stroud that you might have, despite your questions about the overall offense that you might have, whether that's the offensive line, the weapons, the coordinator, or again, the quarterback himself, or a combination of all of it, you go over and look at that defensive side of the ball, and you're starting with two no worse than top 8, probably top 6 or 7 pass rushers in Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. It doesn't get much better than that, and I think they're clearly the best pass rushing tandem in the NFL.
So I think this is the best way to say it. You have 2 of the top 10 pass rushers. Personally, I'd say they're 2 of the top 5. Then you got Derek Stingley, who on that ESPN ranking list came in as the second best corner in the NFL. Only Pat Surtain in front of him and Christian Gonzalez right behind Stingley. That's a lot of elite talent on a defense. And it, once again, puts even more height and awareness and more pressure on C.J. Stroud. And here's the other thing, because I've always been a big fan of Will Anderson. Danielle Hunter is one of the more underrated players in the NFL in the last decade. He has 114.5 career sacks. Like, let's say he gives you, because he's 31, let's say if he gives you 3 or 4 more, like let's say 4 more really good years, he could add 50 more sacks to that sack total. Like, Danielle Hunter is an underappreciated player nationally. That's why I'm so hell-bent on seeing his ranking just go up and up on this list, because this is a guy that when his career ends, he should have a spot, if it continues to go the way that it's been going, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. I don't know how many people have actually thought about that with Danielle Hunter like 3 or 4 years ago.
The guy has shown no signs of aging or slowing down. But the wild part about it is, and he's 31 years old, it's like he's been around for like a decade now, and he's one of the most
2015,
like the most understated and underrated guys that you'll find. Like, and he doesn't talk. He's a quiet guy. Is not an attention seeker. And when you ask him a question, he's pretty direct. He just doesn't have a lot to say. So he's not a big rah-rah guy. But all he's been is productive. He's like, you can just pencil him in for double-digit sacks pretty much every year. And he's been an all-pro multiple years now. So, yeah, he's got a legitimate case for being one of the quieter Hall of Fame players that we've ever seen.
He's Brandon Scott. I'm Zach Gelb. This is Sports Radio 610 on the weekends. When we do come on back, we'll be joined by the Pro Football Hall of Famer and Warren Moon. We'll get his thoughts on this Texan squad as we do shape up and get ready for the start of the season. Does Warren Moon think the disrespect to C.J. Stroud had gone a bit too far? Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon coming up next.
Remembering Janice McNair, the co-founder and senior chair of the Houston Texans, has passed away at the age of 89. The Texans matriarch helped bring football back to H-Town and poured her heart into the Houston.
about the dominance of the defense and then the Super Bowl expectations that are there, and a lot of conversation about the quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He, of course, is Warren Moon. Warren, it's Zach Gelb and B. Scott. Appreciate the time as always. How are you, my friend? Warren, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Well, we're doing fantastic. So we've been talking a lot about on the show today about how people view the quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Do you think the criticism has gone a bit too far? Like, where's your belief level in the Texans' young quarterback?
Yeah, I think it has gone a little bit too far. I think whenever a quarterback doesn't play well in the playoffs, that's the last thing you see. So that's going to stay on your mind, a little bit longer, and it's just going to fester like that. But I'm sure CJ, more than anybody else, wants to get this season going again because he knows he didn't play his best football in the playoffs last year, and his numbers have probably been down the last couple of years since when he first came in the league. So he's anxious to redeem himself and get back out there in the field and show the type of quarterback that he really is.
With the play the last 2 years and people now starting to cool down on CJ, how do you think he'll respond to a lot of that outside noise where it's been painted as this is a make-or-break year for him with the Texans?
CJ has an edge to him, and he's a guy that has a lot of pride, and he I think he went back to the basics this offseason, really getting himself in great condition. He understands he didn't play his best ball, and he took the blame for that. But there's also a lot of other factors that go along with it when you don't have your best wide receiver for most of the year, Nico Collins, when you lose Hank Dale, when you don't have the same running game that you had before. I mean, all those things are factor in affecting the way a quarterback plays. And most important positions in all of team sports, but it's also a very reliant position. You have to have other talent around you in order to be successful. So I think once he gets all of his bullets back in his gun, getting those guys healthy back on the field, and then the fact that he is getting himself much more prepared to play, I think you're going to see him have, a really good year this year.
Warren, you led me right into my next question because that is it. The surroundings, it's not just C.J. Stroud, who I think people are looking at, but the question of, is he surrounded by a healthy enough environment between that running game, the offensive coordinator? So think about it. They had a poor running game. They had a first-year offensive coordinator last year who's going into his second year, who still, I think, has some things to prove. What do you think about all of it? And you obviously played the position at the highest of levels, between the weapons and the actual infrastructure that C.J. Stroud has. Do you believe in, or what do you make of the surroundings around him?
Well, like I said, you have to have that solid infrastructure around you, and he just hasn't had that as much the last couple of years, especially last season. And I think getting all that back on track is going to help him play better, along with the way he's training himself to get ready for the season. Nico Collins was a big receiver for him as far as making big plays down the field after the catch, all those different things. To not have that out there, it's not like you just put another backup receiver out there and you're going to get the same production. They did not get that. And then in the playoffs, his tight game well. So he had a lot of things going against him. Like you said, a new offensive coordinator he had to adapt to early in the season last year. Hopefully that will be better this year because he's got a year under his belt with the organization, and him and CJ know each other a little bit better now as far as what he likes and what he doesn't like. So I think things are really in a position to turn around. It's just a matter of getting back out there and getting it done because, like I said, when you end the playoffs the way he did or the way any quarterback does when he loses his last game, you can't wait to get back out on the field to try and redeem yourself the next season.
Yeah, and obviously the Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon here with us. You talk about how excited he probably is to right the wrong on the field this year. But how do you think he approaches this offseason when everyone's slamming on you? You have the terrible performance up against New England. Like, you've prepared for seasons. You know what it's like when people are all in and all out. What do you think the mental approach is of C.J. Stroud this offseason?
Well, it's to go out there and kind of rededicate himself to getting in the best condition that he can possibly get into, to really look at all the tape of what he did throughout the season and see what he did right, what he did wrong, how he can improve, and then be a leader. Let his team know that even though things didn't end the way you wanted them to, especially at the quarterback position, that I'm coming back and I'm going to show you guys each and every day when you come in the building that I'm here, I'm working, I'm trying to get myself better, and hopefully you guys will come right along with me. And then these other guys have to get healthy. They've got to get healthy so they can help. Like I said, a quarterback is dependent on talent around him, and so those guys need to get back on the field too to make his job just a little bit easier.
Warren, a big part of the disappointment here in Houston last year was the opportunity cost. When you look at the AFC landscape and just what was out there, it was a playoff field that didn't include Patrick Mahomes, didn't include Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Joe Burrow has been injured for quite a bit over the last several seasons, but people are expecting the Bengals to be right there in the thick of it if Joe Burrow is healthy. And so my question to you is, when you look at the Texans and the AFC at large, there are some teams that stepped up with some younger quarterbacks that show some things. Obviously, the Patriots being in the Super Bowl, and then all of those teams that I mentioned that are normally there that weren't. How do you feel about this Texans squad and how they stack up against the rest of the AFC landscape?
You know, I really like them, especially in the division that they're in, because I think they have a chance to win this division. I don't think there's no clear-cut favorite. Whenever you can play defense like this team can play defense, you have a chance to win any football game, and all you have to do is play just average offense and take care of the football, and you're going to win most of your football games. Patrick Mahomes is coming off of a ACL injury. We don't know how he's going to respond to that. He might not even play the first, 3 or 4 games of the season. There's a lot of questions coming into this season about other quarterbacks. Drake May, they're coming, off of a losing type of schedule last year. Well, they're going to have a much more difficult schedule this year. So let's see if the Patriots are as good as they were last year. So a lot of questions to be answered, and Bo Nix in Denver's coming off of an injury where he was hurt in the last playoff game last year. So there's no really clear-cut favorites in the AFC. Yeah, you want the guy. I mean, you expect the guys like the Lamar Jacksons and the Patrick Mahomes and those guys to be back there on top, but you just don't know. Lamar's going to have a new offensive coordinator this year, and he was injured most of the season last year. So I think the Texans are in a really good spot if they can get their guys healthy, the way they play defense, and if they can control the line of scrimmage a little bit better, I think they're going to be in good shape.
And Warren Moon here with us, the Pro Football Hall of Famer. Like, you know how this is painted. The defense is Super Bowl championship caliber right now. The offense is not. Can that create some friction with how public that this is played on out the last 2 years, how great the defense has been and how questionable the offense has been? Is that something to maybe monitor, that this could turn into a little bit of an issue inside the locker room?
I don't think so, because if you look at this team the first few years, they were led by their offense, and their defense wasn't as good. Now the defense has become a great defense because that's where they've put most of their high-round draft picks, and all those guys are starting to pan out, and they're playing high-level football. But I think they know, the guys in the locker room know, especially if you're there each and every day, who's working hard, who's trying to get better, and they know what CJ is capable of doing. They know what their offense is capable of doing. It's just a matter of putting the work in there and getting it done. So they see it on a day-to-day basis where we don't. We're on the outside looking in. So I think the team is all about, you support each side of the ball supports the other, whether they're doing well or not, and you're just hoping that they come around and start to play up to what they're capable of, and that's what they're hoping for the Texans this year, that their offense gets back on track like it was one of the better offenses a couple of years ago.
So, Warren, obviously an elephant in the room for C.J. Stroud is this contract situation, right? He hasn't been signed to his extension that he's eligible for, and, of course, we got all of this other narrative stuff around him, the recency bias from how he played most recently, in the playoffs. As a professional, how do you compartmentalize and go out there and honestly play your best ball when the opinion about you and the conversation about you is at its most negative? Like, how do you reconcile those things when you're in the spotlight in this way that C.J. Stroud is?
Well, that's where your self-confidence and self-belief in yourself, and then also his spiritual belief, which is very strong, I think is going to help him get through a situation like this. he knows what he's capable of doing in this league. It's not like he hasn't done it and he's still trying to get to a level to where he feels like he should earn that type of contract. He's played at that level. Now it's just a matter of getting back to that level. And I think his self-confidence, his spiritual belief, and his work ethic is going to get him back to that level after this season is over. Yeah, he may have to wait an extra year to get the type of money that he's capable of getting, but I think he'll eventually get it in the end. There's no question about it.
So you don't think this is a situation says it's a make or break year, and a lot of people are starting to think about who the next quarterback that could come in to replace CJ. You're still fairly confident that he's going to get that $55-60 million a year deal, and he's going to be sticking with the Texans for the long haul.
I certainly hope so, but I think if the Texans want to go another direction, there will be 10 teams lined up, to get C.J. Stroud's talents to bring it to their organizations. You just don't find top-notch quarterbacks in this league very easily, and it's easy to say get rid of this guy or get rid of that guy, but who are you going to replace him with? So that's what they have to look at when you start talking about, getting rid of somebody who's played at that type of level, an all-pro level that he played at, his first couple of years in this league. And you've seen quarterbacks who haven't played as well as him still get that big bag of money, like Tua and a lot of other guys that hadn't played up to that level. So, and the main reason why is who do you replace them with? So that's going to always be the question if you start talking about getting rid of a C.J. Stroud, who are we going to replace him with?
Is it a breakout year for Cam Ward and the Titans?
I hope so. Again, he's going to have a new coordinator. He's going to have a new head coach, but they have upgraded their talent. I think their coaching staff is better. He's got a year under his belt, so there's no question they should be better this year. How much better, I'm really not sure, but I'm a big fan of Cam's. There's no question about it, and I think he has tremendous ability.
Wrap it up with Warren Moon, the Pro Football Hall of Famer. Just getting back to who could replace CJ. We're monitoring the Baker Mayfield contract situation with Tampa Bay. He's up for an extension. He set that deadline by training camp. He's on the final year of his deal. At the end of the year, could you see them, if CJ doesn't have a good year, maybe going in and pursuing a player like Baker Mayfield in free agency?
I don't think so. I think if you polled most people, they'd rather have CJ over Baker. But I guarantee you that Tampa would come after CJ if the Texans tried to go after Baker. He's going to be very highly coveted around this league. CJ will, especially because he's a young guy. He's only this will be his fifth year coming up or something like that. He's not even in his prime yet. He's still got his best years ahead of him. So I'm not worried about it. I know there's a lot of panic in this city, but I'm not worried about it, and hopefully a lot of other people aren't worried about it as well.
Yeah, last thing I'll ask you, Warren Moon, just because I want to throw one more quarterback out your way. ESPN did this top 10 list for each and every position. Jalen Hurts was ranked on that list as the 17th best quarterback in football. This is a guy that's been to 2 Super Bowls, has won a Super Bowl MVP, and this was a list voted on by executives and coaches. Do you just laugh at how much success Hurts has had and still how strong the criticism is of him as a quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, because he's not your typical, win the game with his arm type of quarterback in this league. He's a winner, and he takes win, and I think his mental strength is something that's very, very contagious to his football team. The way he prepares, all those different things, his leadership qualities, all those things mean something when you have a team that's been put around him that really was well put together. I mean, that was one of the better rosters in this league that we've seen. A very powerful roster on one side of the football on the offensive line. The defensive line could control the ball as well. It can control the line of scrimmage. So he's played on some really good football teams, and he's done what it takes to win those games, and especially those big games. So when you start looking at him and start comparing, okay, what are his numbers and all, as far as his stats and different things like that, yeah, his numbers may not put him up, with the top level guys, but I think there's a more important factor that he brings to the table is that he knows how to win football games, and that's what the Philadelphia Eagles have done basically over the last 4 years with him at the helm.
One more just popped into my mind, knowing that you're a Pro Football Hall of Famer and you've been a part of the voting process a little bit. What's going on with Eli Manning? I know it's been 2 years. Do you think Eli will eventually get that call to the Hall?
I think he will eventually get it. There's no question about it. The 2 Super Bowls definitely helps, but, it's based off of what you did over the entirety of your career. And it's not just the 2 seasons that he had that were great. He played in the league a long time. So I think they're considering all those different things as they look at Eli's career, but I think it's just a matter of time before he's inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame based off of years in the Super Bowls.
Warren Moon, we appreciate it. You be well. Thanks so much for doing this today on a Sunday.
Thanks, Warren.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Great talking to you.
There you go. He's the Pro Football Hall of Famer and Warren Moon. We'll take a break. When we come on back, we'll react to Warren had to say. Some big-time optimism for Warren Moon when it comes to the quarterback position for your Houston Texans in C.J. Stroud. He's Brandon Scott. I'm Zach Gelb. Back in 5 minutes.
In the Loop.
The Astros are at the All-Star break, so how are you feeling about them being buyers versus sellers? I feel like they can't even really be buyers, not even
and 15 minutes. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will get the World Cup final underway between Spain and Argentina. The Astros are in action right now. They're in the bottom of the second, trying to get back into the win column as they are on the verge of potentially getting swept by the Baltimore Orioles. No Pena in the lineup today, no Walker in the lineup today. Both did leave yesterday in that disastrous performance in a back-and-forth affair up against the Baltimore Orioles. We've been talking a lot about the future of this organization. We'll get back into them coming up in the final hour. But B. Scott, your biggest impression on Warren Moon with his analysis on C.J. Stroud was what?
Just that he is a lot more positive about C.J. Stroud than the general consensus conversation is. I think there's a lot more, at the very least, skepticism. And we opened the show or talked earlier about it going too far, or at least asking the question, is it a little too far? Are we in the space of disrespect? And I think he's on the opposite end of that spectrum, where he's still optimistic, still has a level of belief in C.J. Stroud that he can overcome sort of this obstacle, this rough patch in his career. And I think it's a lot different from what I'm sure you're seeing on our text line or through our YouTube chat, or what just a general conversation is about C.J. Stroud, not only really among Texans fans, but to be honest, around the league. When we talk about that top 100 list and it appearing like he's not going to be on it, that top 10 quarterback list, when I mentioned earlier, not only is he not on it, but he's not even honorable mention, not even really much a part of the conversation. So Warren Moon, a lot more positive about C.J. Stroud right now than the general consensus is about him.
My biggest takeaway also illustrates another point, but I'll give my biggest takeaway first, is that he would rather have C.J. Stroud over Baker Mayfield. Now, if his explanation was, the age and C.J. being younger, I would get that. But Baker Mayfield entering the 2026 season is a better quarterback than C.J. Stroud, and we're not that far away for this deadline. That's the end of the month with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield, where if they don't get a long-term deal done, Baker's not negotiating with them after that, or at least that's what he claims. So they may have to wait until the offseason. I know that they could franchise tag him, but I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world if CJ is disappointing this year or doesn't meet the level that you find a way to do a little bit of a quarterback swap in the offseason, because I do think that Baker would raise the expectations here in Houston, even though that's a guy that has not won a Super Bowl or has never even played in a Super Bowl. But I think there's more belief with Baker Mayfield than there would be with where C.J. Stroud is at right now.
And I definitely understand how somebody could arrive at a place where Baker Mayfield is the better quarterback than C.J. Stroud. He is, based off of the season that C.J. Stroud just had, or the ending of the season, I think that Baker Mayfield is definitely in better standing than C.J. Stroud. But I would say this: if we get here a year from now and we're doing this show and we're having a conversation similar to this a year from now, and you're not about to renege on that statement, like you don't take that back, and C.J. Stroud is not actually the better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, that'll be all you need to know, and that'll speak to the failure of what the season must have been for C.J. Stroud. So I think the idea is, even if you want to quibble with Baker Mayfield being better than C.J. Stroud right now, that by the time you get to the end of it, he better not be. By the time you get to the end of the 2026 season, that distinction needs to be a lot clearer in C.J. Stroud's favor. And if it's not, then, we're definitely at a crossroads here in Houston in terms of who the quarterback is going to be, much less if it's Baker Mayfield, but certainly major decisions to be made on C.J. Stroud's future here.
And that was the other point that I thought Warren Moon made, which I think is a very good point. This could be it for Houston. If they get to a playoff game and they're in the second round and they got a chance to go to a conference championship game and they're driving with, let's say, 2.5 to go, and the ball's getting matriculated down the field and they get to the 30-yard line, and then C.J. Stroud throws it to Patrick Surtain, and it goes the other way, and it takes it to the house, and that's how the Texans tap out of the postseason. It's on the shoulders of C.J. Stroud. Yes, I do think that would be the end of the C.J. Stroud era in Houston, but he'll get another opportunity in this league, and they'll be able to trade him. Like, you look at Josh Rosen, who barely played. He once got traded for a second-round pick. Even Sam Darnold, after years of playing in New York and it being a disaster, he got traded for a few second-round picks. And that's like the tough spot with C.J. Stroud, is that he's so young, and he's been productive in this league, and he's been on a team that doesn't have the best offensive weapons around him. We know the defense has been lights out, but 3 years in, he's been to the postseason 3 times, and he's won a playoff game in each of his first 3 seasons in the league. Like, there will be another team that will take a bite out of the apple, where you look at an organization where, yes, the Texans right now are in win-now mode. It's to try to go to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, things that they have never done in the history of this franchise. But it's like another team like the Browns, the Jets, where the bar is lower. If they don't love the quarterbacks in the draft, and I know there's supposed to be a loaded quarterback draft, or let's say they miss out on their top 3 guys because maybe one of those teams are a little bit better, but they don't have a long-term answer at the quarterback position, you could start getting dealt in the offseason and a team wanting him because what could be another team's garbage could be, one team's garbage could be another team's gold.
You know what the season for C.J. Stroud, the upcoming season for C.J. Stroud kind of reminds me of? It's not a perfect comparison, but it kind of feels like this. It's not a perfect comparison because C.J. Stroud, I think, because of his rookie year and the overall team success that the Texans have had, they're in a little bit of a different conversation than this team was at that time. But it reminds me of like 2019 Jameis Winston, right? Whereas, like you could justify moving on from any version of Jameis Winston for Tom Brady, but it was because Jameis Winston had become so volatile up until that point. And he was clearly talented, and he was the guy that they drafted with their top pick, and he was the franchise guy. But they decided to move on from him, and obviously they do it for Tom Brady. Again, it's not the perfect comparison, but it felt like 2019 was kind of a tryout year for Jameis Winston, not just like his spot in the league, like he was playing for a job outright, but he was definitely like playing for that job and for his future with that franchise. And it feels like 2026 C.J. Stroud is in a similar space of 2019 Jameis Winston, whereas if he has a poor year or a year where it doesn't measure up to the level, he's probably still going to get a shot because he's so young and because he has shown so much at this point of his career where he'll play somewhere, whether it's as a backup or it's like a bridge starter or whatever the case may be, or where the Texans do decide to pay him and double down. But that is what it reminds me of, kind of a tryout year, not just trying out for the league, but like where do you sit? How do teams view you? What is your future either with this team or elsewhere?
Yeah, and it's a precarious spot, and I'll go one off of your Winston comparison, because this is how I'll do it. Remember that year Winston had 30 touchdowns, but he also had 30 interceptions?
That was the year.
Yeah, right? Like, people look at that, and they go, 30 touchdowns. If he could just get those interceptions down to 14 or 13, that's one of the best quarterbacks in football. But for C.J. Stroud, it's like, yes, there's been the 30 touchdowns of he gets him to the postseason. He wins a playoff game. But the 30 interceptions for him have been once you get into the divisional round weekend. I think you're on to something there where, yes, like from afar, if you would just say, compare Winston to Stroud, they're not really comparable because Stroud had a lot more success. But that conversation of the 30 for 30, and I'm not talking about ESPN, I'm talking about Jameis Winston of 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. It was, which side do you want to see? And that's why I think this is so polarizing, because people see the 30 touchdowns with C.J. Stroud and they go, they're consistently in the postseason, they're consistently winning a playoff game. But then you know the other shoe that drops, and that's the limitation of you get into the second round and then he urinates down his leg.
And I want to be clear about C.J. Stroud, because this is what the mind game of it all, or the tough part to reckon with, is that, and we keep saying, like, if C.J. Stroud just plays like ex-quarterback team in Foxborough, if he just plays like this or if he just plays like that, man, if C.J. Stroud had just played like, I don't know, C.J. Stroud, then they would have won that game. Like, these playoff performances have been anomalies when you compare him to what he's actually been in the regular season. He's not careless with the football. Now, he's been a little bit more careless than he was his rookie year, but he's not risk averse, but he's not careless with the football. He's not out here giving it away week in and week out. it's just something about those 2 playoff performances where he kind of just got out of himself. But, like, if he can find it, if he can kind of just go back to what he was and what he's been, he'll get paid and he'll be the quarterback of the future. And the Texans will find themselves in a decent spot to do some things that they have not done before. But if he reverts back to what we've seen in the playoffs most recently, then not only are the Texans not finding themselves to realizing their goals, but C.J. Stroud could find himself with a different zip code.
Zach Gale, B. Scott on a Sunday afternoon right here on Sports Radio 610. We have one more hour to go. I got to get into a really cool J.J. Watt story coming up in the final hour. I will also, on the other side, give you my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, and I'll lay out where I'm at right now on the top 10 QBs in the league. And a year from now, can we find C.J. Stroud being better than any of those quarterbacks, or is that task just simply too tall? B. Scott, Zach Gelb here with you Sunday afternoon on Sports Radio 610.
Non-quarterbacks. If you could pick one to take the leap conversation at the end of this
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
That is right. It is Sports Radio 610 Weekend. Zach L.B. Scott here with you for another hour to play. We'll get back into the Astros. Before we do say goodbye, I'll tell you about how I was a block and a half away yesterday from J.J. Watt, and I had no clue that I was in the presence of greatness. So we'll get into all that, but we've been rocking and rolling really with the C.J. Stroud talk today. Warren Moon did join us at 1:25. If you missed any of that conversation, it's available on the always free Odyssey app. Just use the rewind function. And the Houston Astros are trying to avoid a sweep up against the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles have taken a lead in the top of the third. They're up 2-0 against the Astros, who are currently 47-53, and maybe starting out this second half of the season getting swept by the Baltimore Orioles. But, B. Scott, I'll do this right now. I'll give you my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. And once we get past the first five, because I think the first five aren't debatable, like maybe the order, but I don't think anyone this time next year are going to say that one of these five quarterbacks that C.J. Stroud could be better than. But after you get past the first five, because of how 6 to 15 in terms of those names being so interchangeable, I'm curious what you think about how C.J. Stroud does stack up against those quarterbacks. So let me start you off at the first five. I have Josh Allen as a number one quarterback in the NFL. Then number two, I have Matthew Stafford. Then number three, I have Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow comes in at 4, and then Lamar Jackson in at 5. Like, I think those are the five best quarterbacks in some order in the NFL, correct?
Yeah, I would agree with those five. Now, I would quibble with the order just a little bit, but I don't think we have to do that. I think that should be the consensus top five, yes.
Yeah, and Mahomes, I think putting him down at 3 is probably the most eye-popping, but I think it's just coming off the injury. I would still say he's the most feared quarterback in the league, but the season that Allen and Stafford just have, I just elevate them there. And then for Burrow and Lamar, we know they're established. We know they're great. They just got to stay healthy and make a triumphant return to the postseason. Then after that, I don't think it's that crazy, and I'm being consistent here, because 2 years ago I had C.J. Stroud in this spot. Then this time last year, I had Jaden Daniels going into that spot. With the emergence of Drake May, I have Drake May as the 6th best quarterback in the NFL. Now, Drake May did not play well in the postseason. We saw that as bad as C.J. Stroud was, and he was worse than Drake May. It's not like Drake played exceptionally well up against that Texans defense. That was a battle of two great defensive football teams. But I look at a guy like Drake May, I'm curious what that Drake May C.J. Stroud next year, because it wasn't that long ago that CJ was in this spot, and then Drake May has quickly taken this league by storm.
Yeah, you laid that out perfectly, right? Like Drake May and CJ Stroud. Now, Drake May has the better version of this because they went to the Super Bowl, and he was a legitimate MVP candidate. I know CJ Stroud finished top 8 in MVP voting his rookie year, but Drake May was literally right there.
Second, yeah.
He finished second, so he's got the better individual season. But where the comparison lies between the two is that both of them really have just this one big year. And now the need to replicate it, right? Like Drake May needs to replicate it now. And C.J. Stroud has had 2 seasons to replicate his rookie year and is yet to do so. So I think both guys are similarly situated, but the what have you done for me lately nature of sports, and Drake May literally just coming out of the Super Bowl, literally just having the top 2 MVP finish puts him above C.J. Stroud. But I honestly think that they're similarly situated, and how their years, how their seasons play out in 2026 will say a lot about where they sit on this list.
That ESPN list that we were talking about earlier had Jalen Hurts with the executives and coaches ranked as the 17th best quarterback in the NFL. With how close this list is from 6 to 15, the guys that I were considering, I'm putting Jalen Hurts at 7, and I understand he has a great environment around him, but anytime Jalen Hurts is doubted, he proves you wrong. And the guy's not only been to 2 Super Bowls, he's won one. He's won a Super Bowl MVP, and quite frankly, he was better than Patrick Mahomes both times when the Eagles sit in the Super Bowl. So I'll put Jalen Hurts in at 7, but B. Scott, I don't think it's crazy. Like Philadelphia sports fans, I know them well, going to school at Temple University and living in Philadelphia for 7 or 8 years. A lot of fans are on the fence about Jalen Hurts, And if he doesn't have this really good season this year, maybe there's a conversation about Howie Roseman wheeling and dealing Jalen Hurts out of Philadelphia.
Dude, I love Jalen Hurts. As you know, he's a Houston native. He's from Channelview, right outside of Houston. So people around here really think highly of Jalen Hurts and his entire family and just how they're built and what they stand for. A lot of respect there. But you tell me if you think I'm crazy that, like, I would prefer Jalen Hurts in the postseason, but probably even C.J. Stroud in the regular season, or like Jared Goff or Dak Prescott. Like, there's a handful of quarterbacks in the NFL that I would rather have, like, for the entirety of a season or through the length of a season, but would prefer Jalen Hurts in, like, really specific moments when I do value intangibles more than, say, I would over the course of a 10 to 17 game stretch, So it's kind of a weird spot to be in with Jalen Hurts, because I honestly, as much as I respect him, understand where Philly fans are coming from, because when I watch him, I don't feel like I'm watching a quarterback who's as talented as C.J. Stroud or who is as talented as Dak Prescott or Jared Goff or a lot of the other quarterbacks who are going to be on this list. So he is a tough one for me to evaluate. It is one thing we talked about earlier that was interesting, that kind of he points out accurately that he's just a different type of quarterback, and I think it makes him harder to evaluate and decide what to do with him in rankings like this one.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, because just throwing the football, like Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, are going to have better numbers than Jalen Hurts. But I think it's kind of an antiquated thing that we do, is that Jalen Hurts also adds so much on the ground. Yeah. Like, athlete-wise, Jalen Hurts is a better athlete than Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and C.J. Stroud.
Yes.
So that running component, I still think it gets lost, where when you watch a game on CBS or on Fox and they do the quarterback previews and they have, like, let's say if Jalen Hurts is going up against C.J. Stroud, when they do the big graphics before the games, they usually just show the passing numbers. But for Jalen Hurts, the whole story isn't told by the passing numbers. It's only a half of a story, because the rushing numbers have been so good. And, like, even for Lamar, who was phenomenal as a runner, everyone would just salivate over those numbers. Then it's like you just see the stats that he puts up through the air, and people then realize, like, oh, Lamar could also throw the football. So I think Lamar being as great as he has been, even though he doesn't have a Super Bowl, also hurts Jalen Hurts, as that's a tough tongue twister to say, because it's like Lamar is elite with the passing numbers and elite with the running numbers, where Jalen Hurts is really only elite with the running numbers, and the passing numbers aren't the sexiest.
Yeah, and they need the run game to work overall to open up the pass.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's different from Lamar. So with Hurts, it's different from Lamar, where Lamar himself can be their run game. I know they've got Derrick Henry and they've had running backs to kind of pair with him over the years, but Lamar himself can be one of the more dynamic rushers regardless of who his running back is, whereas we've seen, and you've seen this even closer than I have, whereas with Philly, if it's not working with Saquon or whoever their running back is, it's not like Jalen Hurts is necessarily dynamic enough to just be the rushing attack in and of himself. He needs a partner. They need the rushing game and the passing game to work in tandem and to complement each other. And if one of them is not working and they become one-dimensional, it's not like he's the type of quarterback that can go out there and win you the game with his arm. And so that's what kind of gets him the demerits. And then that's the issue that the Eagles run into when their offense is not clicking on all cylinders.
I like that you brought up Dak Prescott, by the way, because it flows perfectly for my list. He is my 8th best quarterback in the NFL. And I've never thought about it this way until now, B. Scott. If the Texans and the Cowboys had a baby, they'd be in the Super Bowl. Like, if you put Dak on this offense and you get Nico Collins and then just take one of CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, and you have the Texans defense with some of the pieces on the Cowboys offense, that's a Super Bowl caliber team.
Oh, my God. So are you telling me, Zach, that we need to move the Texans and the Cowboys to Austin or San Antonio and call them the spray? Everybody in Texas come together and we get ourselves a Super Bowl contender? Who's for it? 713-572-4610. Let us know if you're for it. But that would be a wild idea, a wild concept. But I'm with you though. If they had a baby, if football teams could have a baby, I'd wonder how much baby making would actually happen out there.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I don't think many Cowboys fans are too fond of Texans fans, and I don't think too many Texans fans are fond of Cowboys fans.
I don't know what will give you that idea.
It's a hot take. It's a scorching hot take, you know? But sometimes the person that you hate the most is someone that you need the most. And if we could just merge those two franchises and put them in San Antonio, and we call them like the Texans Cowboys or something like that, man, that's a great team.
Zach, there's no doubt in my mind, just hatred aside, the I-45 hatred aside, the Cowboys would absolutely take this Texans defense, and the people of Houston, and I'll say this as a Houstonian and speak for all of y'all, all the millions of y'all, we would absolutely take that offense that they got over there in Dallas. No doubt about it.
And maybe we would make them the Houston Cowboys, because I think DeMeco Ryans would be the coach over Brian Schottenheimer. It's a coin flip between the McNairs and the Jones family. Obviously, the Joneses are in the Hall of Fame, Jerry Jones. But I think that you move him to Houston and you make him the Houston Cowboys. And, man, we're probably annoying a lot of people on a Sunday by just having this conversation.
Yeah, man, not a great way to endear ourselves to the people of Houston talking about merging them with the Cowboys. Absolutely not.
But it definitely address things. You put Dak with Pickens and Lamb, and then you got Will Anderson, you got Stingley, and then you also got Danielle Hunter. Could be a super season, and put them in the AFC too. Easier than the NFC.
Look, Texas is not above the idea of thinking that it should be its own country anyway. Not to go down that road, but look, this could work. This could work if the two Texas teams could somehow merge. We would be cooking with grease out here. No doubt about it.
Coming up next hour, even though we don't have a next hour, we'll do Texas A&M and the Houston Cougars merging as well.
that would be the Longhorns and the Aggies, and there would be a mutiny. I think the Cowboys-Texans thing, I know we're joking, but I think that could actually work, conceptually, right? I think we could get those those people to see the common ground or the common good that could come of it, the greater good that could come of it, and actually work something out. There is no chance in hell that you're going to ever get the Aggies and the Longhorns to coexist for anything.
Yeah, I think you're going out on a limb on that one. I think you're 100% right. All righty, number 9, best quarterback in the NFL. I actually have Baker Mayfield. I think people forget Baker walked into Tampa Bay replacing Tom Brady, and I know they just missed the postseason last year because of a technicality, but Baker's put up some prodigious numbers with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now it's going to kind of be a new era because Mike Evans is done. You got Emeka Egbuka there. Chris Godwin is still a productive player and living's a good running back. But that's a team in the South, the NFC South. I'll be fascinated to see who's going to win that division this year. I'll probably still lean Tampa. I don't love Carolina, and I look at the rest of that division. Atlanta, they can never get it right. I'll tell you, the Saints could be a dark horse team to win that South this year because I like that quarterback in Tyler Shuck.
All right, you finally struck a nerve now. You finally struck a nerve with me, Zach, with Baker Mayfield on this one. I got at least – I mean, I know we were kind of relating this to C.J. Stroud, but I got at least 3 quarterbacks that I would take over Baker Mayfield before I got here. I mean –
hold off on those.
Go ahead. Go ahead. But Baker Mayfield, I think we were having this conversation earlier.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud absolutely needs to be better than Baker Mayfield in 2026, no doubt about it.
Yeah, because let me just give you my 10th quarterback, and then I have a bunch of honorable mentions, and I think they're going to be fun to compare those honorable mentions to C.J. Stroud. My 10th one is Justin Herbert.
Okay.
Like that, the 9th and 10th spots were really difficult because I was considering Caleb Williams, I was considering Jared Goff, Jordan Love. Maybe throwing Sam Darnold in there. But the 9th and 10th spots, I ended up going with Baker and Herbert. So, those top 10 quarterbacks that I just gave you, Allen, Stafford, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Drake, Hurts, Dak, Baker, and Herbert. How many do you think at the end of the year, out of those 10 only, before we get to the honorable mention, that you think C.J. Stroud could be better than?
Yeah, so since Herbert's on the list, I feel like he could easily be better than him because we've actually already seen him beat Justin Herbert in a playoff game. And I think that Herbert's helping him a lot is just him passing the eye test. I mean, he just looks like the guy. right? And I think he's looked like the guy since the very beginning, despite the fact that he's got some of these similar failures and playoff shortcomings. I would say even more so than C.J. Stroud. So Justin Herbert, I think, is the clear candidate on this list, and then Baker Mayfield as well. Like I know I took exception to that, to him even being on this list. Those guys that you mentioned, honorable mention, I would have all of them above Baker Mayfield, from Jordan Love to I forget the rest of it, but pretty much every single guy that you mentioned I would have had over Baker Mayfield, and I actually like and respect Baker Mayfield. But he needs to be better. C.J. Stroud needs to be better than him, and certainly needs to be considered better than Justin Herbert, unless, caveat, Justin Herbert finally puts it together in a similar way that we're saying that C.J. Stroud needs to put it together, right? Like, I think at their best, at their ceiling, at their highest potential, that Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than C.J. Stroud. But I don't think there's any shame in that, just because I think that highly of Justin Herbert's potential. But just based off of where they are right now, C.J. Stroud needs to be, I think, ahead of him in that conversation, just as a more accomplished guy. And if he does his part this year, I think he will be.
So my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL: Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Drake May, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, and Justin Herbert. On the other side, I'm going to go through the honorable mentions, and I'm just going to get a yes or a no out of you, B. Scott, and we'll have a conversation. Are the honorable mention quarterback first off than C.J. Stroud? Because, like, I just went through 10 quarterbacks. I got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17 total quarterbacks. We're going to see with the remaining guys, like the next 6 or 7 guys, how many of those guys can C.J. Stroud maybe outplay heading into this season. He's B. Scott. I'm Zach Gelb. We're rocking and rolling. Got about 40 more minutes left here on a weekend, on a Sunday on Sports Radio 610.
Texans training camp is just 2 weeks away. Are you Sugarland Studios. It's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
Astros trying to avoid a sweep today. It's the top of the fourth. The Orioles are up 2-1, and Baltimore is at the plate. They got guys on first and second with one out, with Mayo up right now for the Orioles. So we'll continue to update that before we do say goodbye at the top of the hour, right at 3 p.m. Zach Gell, Brandon Scott here with you on a Sunday afternoon on Sports Radio 610. B. Scott, right before the break, I was giving you my time in the NFL. Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Drake May, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, and Justin Herbert. Let's get into the honorable mentions here. And do you think the quarterback that I'm going to give you, that C.J. Stroud could be better than that quarterback, or maybe not so much? How about Caleb Williams after the masterful second year that he had, taking the Chicago Bears to the second round of the playoffs and actually giving some life into that franchise and also at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go not so much, as it pains me to say. Like, I'd love to be the homer and go with C.J. Stroud here. Let the bias get the best of me. I'd love to do that, but I'm an honest guy, Zach, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to the people of Houston and pretend like C.J. Stroud is above Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is more talented, and I think that the infrastructure there in Chicago is better. And so, especially with Ben Johnson and the weapons that Ryan Poles has drafted out there in Chicago, so I'm going to go with Caleb Williams as both the player and the situation in Chicago for sure.
How about Jared Goff?
So Jared Goff to me is just flat out better than C.J. Stroud right now. Like, I don't have an argument for C.J. Stroud over Jared Goff. I cannot think of an honest argument for Jared Goff over C.J. Stroud. But the question is, can he be better than that guy? Can he be as good as that guy? And I think the ideal version of C.J. Stroud is something like what we've seen from Jared Goff over the last handful of years that he's been in Detroit now. So could we get to the end of the season and I say that C.J. Stroud is a better Jared Goff or has surpassed him from where they are right now? And I do think that Jared Goff is ahead of him right now. I would agree. I think, yes, I think C.J. Stroud can be better than Jared Goff by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think Goff is in a really good environment, and he's in a really good spot, so that plays a factor in it as well. But the other thing, too, is like Goff has similar issues to Stroud. Now, Goff is a better statistical quarterback than Stroud is, but you look at 2 years ago, he was god-awful up against the Washington Commanders as the number one seed with the home playoff game, and we know C.J. Stroud was absolutely terrible up against the New England Patriots. How about Jordan Love?
Jordan Love is more talented, I think, than C.J. Stroud. I hate this is going to be similar to the Caleb Williams argument that I made earlier, but I think that both the talent and the infrastructure that Jordan Love is working with is just better than C.J. Stroud right now. So those would be guys that I would have above him now and guys that I anticipate remaining above him by the time we get to the end of the season. Doesn't mean that the season can't be successful or that Stroud can't still have a good season, but those are two guys on the younger side, and especially Caleb Williams, who I would still have above C.J. Stroud.
Love, to me, though, I think he has regressed as well. We all remember that great playoff game up against the Cowboys. Then he had that costly interception where they were trying to beat the 49ers. Last year, he was very underwhelming in the postseason where they blew that lead to Chicago. The year before that, they really weren't ever in it. It felt up against the Philadelphia Eagles, even though that game was close. But I never thought that Love was going to win. I think this is a big year for the Packers, and I actually think they're going to miss the postseason this year. They've been teetering with it the last 2 years, right on that 7-seed line. This year, I think they just miss the postseason. How about Brock Purdy?
I'd take C.J. Stroud over Brock Purdy. Now, I do like the 49ers infrastructure and what they got going on better than what the Texans have. So I think Brock is in a much better situation than C.J. Stroud, and they just brought in Mike Evans, and they still got Christian McCaffrey. Like, they've got, and obviously Kyle Shanahan is running the show over there. Everything else outside of Brock Purdy I like much better for the 49ers than I like for C.J. Stroud here in Houston. But just as individual talents, the quarterbacks themselves, I'd take C.J. Stroud now over Brock Purdy, and I anticipate that answer staying consistent by the end of the season.
How about Bo Nix?
Bo Nix is one that I got to admit, like I've been wrong at every turn. All he has done since he got to the league.
You probably hated him when he was at Auburn, honestly.
Oh, my God. Hated him at Auburn, hated him at Oregon.
I called him Bo Picks then.
My goodness, man. I cannot get rid of this Bo Nix guy, man. He won't die. And I don't mean
He's
literally. I mean, like, just as an idea, as a concept. I can't get rid of the guy. I've got to respect him. I got to respect the fact that at every turn he's proven me wrong. And even having said all of that, Zach, I'm still taking C.J. Stroud. I'm taking C.J. Stroud over Bo Nix. I don't care.
How about Jaden Daniels? I think this one is fascinating because rookie season, that top C.J. Stroud's rookie season the year prior, but then Jaden Daniels got hurt last year. I don't know if you've been watching that Netflix quarterback documentary, but I've been seeing Jaden Daniels on it. I've been seeing Baker Mayfield on it. And when I've been watching that, B. Scott, I keep on thinking about the Texans quarterback position and all those guys, just grouping them up and ranking them together with C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, so this is the new season. I've watched previous seasons. I even watched the version of the wide receivers one that they did. I guess that was either last year or the year before. So I am going to tap into this new quarterback season. Just haven't done it yet. But, yeah, man, Jaden. So I'll say this about Jaden Daniels. He is, to me, Lamar Jackson fully realized. Like Jaden Daniels at his best, if things work out, like
got to stay healthy. Yeah,
he's got to stay healthy. They've got to build it around him. So like more has to happen aside from just him. The main thing with him though is the staying upright and staying healthy and being available. But to me, he is what the true imagination or the realization of Lamar Jackson actually is. A guy that is devastating both through the air and on the ground, and there's not really too many answers for if everything else around him is correct. So, yeah, I'm going to have Jaden Daniels over him as well.
And last one, Sam Darnold.
This is the tricky one. Because
what does everyone say right now with C.J. Stroud?
Yeah.
Can he be Sam Darnold this year?
Can he just be Sam Darnold? This is going to be the toughest one, and I hate to waffle on the radio. I'm going to go ahead and have...
I want an opinion right now. Come on.
C.J. Stroud over Sam Darnold, damn it. Ooh. And I'm saying that with my chest. I'm saying C.J. Stroud over the Super Bowl winning and the reigning Super Bowl winning quarterback, Sam Darnold, that is. Yeah, I honestly believe that if you put C.J. Stroud in a situation like what Sam Darnold was in last year with a decent run game that became elite by the time they got to the end of it, and a defense that was honestly similar to the one that C.J. Stroud has right now, but with the play caller that they had, that you could get a similar result from C.J. Stroud. What I've seen from Sam Darnold, the best of him, I do feel like C.J. Stroud has both done and is capable of doing right now. So I'm going to take C.J. Stroud over Sam Darnold. This is easily the most controversial one and the hardest one for me to come up with.
So it's funny. We just went through 17 quarterbacks. You would rather have Stroud over Baker. You'd rather have Stroud over Herbert, Stroud over Brock Purdy, Stroud over Bo Nix, and then Stroud over Sam Darnold. That's like not a lot of quarterbacks when we give you 17. And if Stroud does well this year, or regardless of what happens, the conversation's going to be, do the Texans give $55, $60 million a year to C.J. Stroud after doing that exercise? Barring this team get into a conference championship game, or if there is a reason why they lose that it's not C.J. Stroud. Like, let's say they're in the second round of the playoffs, and for some reason the Texans defense just has an off day, and it's just a shootout, and the other team just outgrinds let's say it's Bo Nix. Unfortunately for you, it throws like a game-winning touchdown with 8 seconds left. I kind of think it's rather unlikely that the Texans are giving C.J. Stroud a $55, $60 million a year contract next year.
Yeah, man, it is why this season feels like so much of a tryout. And again, not for his entire NFL livelihood. He is going to play somewhere, and honestly, I think he's going to get an opportunity to start somewhere regardless of what happens this year. The question is that going to be here in Houston, right? And his performance is going to dictate that. But I go back to this point, and I made it earlier, but it stands out after we go through this exercise and actually say all the quarterbacks' names out loud, how the quarterbacks that are supposed to either be his peers or have come right after him have surpassed him. Because notice I didn't push back on Jaden Daniels. I didn't push back on Drake May when you said him earlier. right? I'm not pushing back on Caleb Williams. Like, these guys who were drafted after him have not only supplanted him in the conversation, but also, like, in my mind of who you would rather have. Now, that it does not mean that C.J. Stroud can't still rectify the situation and still make good on his opportunity here with the Texans. It's just a sobering place to be in when you look at it and think, man, this guy feels like he's on the fringes of the top 15 as opposed to the top 10, which is what it was looking like after his rookie year.
I'm checking the YouTube chat right now, and I think this is a great point. Sage Dragon says, if the Bengals have another bad season, how a 1-for-1 Burrow for CJ trade? Now, let me be clear on this.
Come on, man.
There is no way.
Zero chance.
That the Bengals would straight up trade Burrow for CJ Stroud. But CJ Stroud could be a piece to go back to the Bengals if you want to add, I don't know, 3 other first-round picks, because, like, 4 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks, probably going to be needed to go get Joe Burrow out of Cincinnati, assuming that he's healthy this year and the Bengals just don't meet their potential, and then Joe Burrow wants to force his way out. But that could be a dream where I've been talking about Baker potentially replacing C.J. Stroud. I don't think we're that far off from Joe Burrow wanting out. Now, if Joe Burrow wants out, I think a lot of people are going to place him in Minnesota, but the Texans have a lot to offer because you could trade away C.J., and that's like, all right, you know, something that you would attach to sweeten a deal, a young quarterback that's had some success in this league, but you'd be having to give up. Like, pretty much what the Browns gave up for Deshaun Watson is what you would need to give up to go get Joe Burrow, in my estimation.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and I just feel like the Bengals trading Joe Burrow would be like the football version of the Mavs trading Luka. Like, I know the idea is they would actually get proper value back as opposed to what the Mavs did in the Luka trade.
Yeah,
but even still, though, man, like, the Bengals ain't had nothing going for them for either of our lifetimes, certainly. And it's just like Joe Burrow's.
It's like Boomer Esiason and Kenny Anderson.
Exactly. So, like, this is literally the best thing to happen to the generation. It would be absurd for them to even consider that unless Joe Burrow just absolutely demanded it. But since
Which is on the table.
It is on the table. But since I did the 2019 Jameis Winston comparison to 2016 C.J. Stroud, could a deal like this compare to, like, the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford type of deal, right? Where you're trading what at that point would be the older quarterback. And I understand Joe Burrow at that point wouldn't be as old as Matthew Stafford was, but it's sort of the same concept. An older, accomplished quarterback for a younger quarterback who was drafted high but hasn't necessarily lived up to the potential, but has done some good things. Got to remember, Jared Goff did technically go to a Super Bowl with the Rams. So, like, it could be something similar to that where you're still giving up picks, but you're getting back the better quarterback. I can't see it, but that would be the comparison for me.
The Rams gave up Goff and 2 first-round picks to get Stafford. So if it was Goff and 2 first-round picks for Stafford, and there was a lot of questions still about Stafford, it just shows you how much of a big return that the Texans, how much the Texans would have to depart with in order to get Joe Burrow. But if they get Joe Burrow, you're looking at that team, and I know that the offensive line can still be a question, but with that defense, oh my God, that would be something that would just be unbelievable to see if the Texans could find the way to pull off that deal in the offseason. But I know we're doing a weird comparisons today. I'll give you one. You mentioned Cincinnati. Are the Texans just a better version of the Cincinnati Bengals that we saw for a decade, where at least the Texans get to the second round to the playoffs? Marvin Lewis, did the Bengals just get to the postseason? They get to the first round, and then they would lose. Like, is this what's happening with the Texans? They just do one better than the Bengals, where they win one playoff game, they get to the second round, and that's just going to be the apex of this organization.
Oh, no, Zach. This is worse than the Cowboys and the Texans having a baby, man.
We're getting funky here.
Is C.J. Stroud Andy Dalton? Is that what's happening? Well, like if we're playing out, if we're living out this comparison, is that what we're doing? Absolutely not, man. It can't be. I think it's on the table.
Slightly better.
Like, I think this comparison only works because it's on the table depending on how this year goes. But as a Houstonian, as a native of this place, I'm here to tell you, absolutely freaking not. It cannot happen, man. It cannot. It cannot be. This can't be life.
But isn't it crazy? They are so close to being the Bengals, but they're also so close to being the Seattle Seahawks that we just saw this year.
Hey, man, it's a thin line between here and there. And the Texans are the epitome of that. That thin line between here and there, the haves and the have-nots, the Texans are towing that line, it seems like, very, very finely and perfectly.
I was a block and a half away from J.J. Watt yesterday, and I didn't even know it. We'll get to that story next. He's B. Scott. I'm Zach Gelb. One more segment to play. We're coming on back. Sports Radio 610 weekends right after these short messages.
Remembering Janice McNair, the co-founder and senior chair of the Houston Texans, has passed away at the age of 89. The Texans matriarch helped bring football down and poured her heart into the Houston
SportsRadio. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Live from the West Point Lincoln and West Point Lincoln of Sugar Land Studios, it's Sports Radio 610 Weekends.
2-1, top of the fifth. Between the Orioles and the Astros. The Orioles are up 2-1 as they're trying to sweep the Houston Astros today. We'll wrap up the show with a little back into what we did earlier. It's B. Scott and Zach Gelb here with you on weekends on Sports Radio 610. So Will Anderson is actually at the World Cup final right now between Argentina and Spain. If you were watching a football game, he's basically sitting where the end zone would be, about 15, 20 rows off the field. It looks like he's wearing an Argentina jersey, but there's no score there. 0-0, as they say in soccer, as we're 38 minutes into the game. J.J. Watt is also there. And B. Scott, I don't know if you saw this story yesterday. I live a block and a half away from this watering hole called O'Hara's Pub. And I go there quite often. Like, it's a block and a half from where I live in New York City. So J.J. Watt, I gather for the World Cup and then also for Fanatics Fest, he's staying in New York City. So yesterday it was pouring here. So my girlfriend and I, we were trying to go somewhere for lunch. So we went to this diner. And I see a tweet online like 5 hours later. And this random fan is at a brunch, and J.J. Watt's the table over from him, and the fan just tweets out, man, I didn't have the courage to go up to one of my favorite athletes ever. He was sitting and enjoying some brunch in New York City, and I didn't want to bother him. So J.J. Watt responds to that person's tweet and goes, well, where you at right now? I want to meet you. And he said that he was at this pub called O'Hara's, which is a really good local bar in New York City in the financial district. About like a block or two from where the World Trade Center was. They do a lot of work for the fire department. And J.J. Watt said to the guy, well, get me a Guinness. I'll be over there in 10 minutes. And J.J. Watt hung out with this guy for an hour and a half yesterday. It's a block and a half away from my apartment. The great J.J. Watt is there. And I had no clue about it until after it happened.
Yeah, man, it's a small world. Just right under your nose, right there in your backyard. You could have been right there with a first ballot Hall of Famer, all-time great, one of the best defensive players to ever do it. Imagine the stories that you could have gotten, the laughs that you could have had right there with J.J. Watt in your own backyard, on your turf, right, at your watering hole, man. It's an opportunity missed, but, hey, man, how were you supposed to know until you did?
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter later in the day, and it's pretty damn cool. I met J.J. Watt once. It was at a Super Bowl. This was the Beyonce Super Bowl. This was Niners and Ravens, the Harbaugh Bowl, where she did the halftime show. And Beyonce came to Radio Row at the Super Bowl back then and did an interview with Rich Eisen and Prime, Deion Sanders.
Oh, you're talking about
Coach Prime.
You're talking about way back. You're talking about the Harbaugh Bowl when she shut down the Superdome with the electricity.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I'm at that Radio Row, and Beyonce walked in the room, and the whole room stopped. Like, it was the first time I heard talk show hosts silent.
As it should. That's the proper response.
You could hear a pin drop, and everyone stood up. And so I'm standing up, and I'm looking at Beyonce, and who's to my left? J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
And you know what J.J. Watt said? Beyonce sits down. Let's just say her backside is facing myself and J.J. Watt. We are behind the interview. J.J. goes to me, and my dad was standing next to me. Boys, we got the best view in the house.
Yes. That's before Married with Children, J.J. Watt. But that's also just not blind, having eyes, red-blooded J.J. Watt, seeing what everybody else, I'm sure, was seeing at that point. Man, you're talking about real Houston royalty right there. You're in some kind of middle between J.J. Watt and Beyonce in one room. I mean, that's a hell of a radio row right
Texas.
there. I'm telling you, man, that is it. That is it. That is the dream realized right there.
Okay, so let's do a little topic off this and have fun to wrap up our Sunday before we get back to the miserable Astros. If you could go get a beer with three famous people, who would they be? Could be athletes, could be non-athletes. Like, you're just saying, okay, what J.J. Watt did for that guy yesterday, you go have a beer with 3 famous people. Who would the 3 famous people be?
Yeah, so I mean, you put Beyonce out there. I mean, we could start there with Houston royalty, absolutely. Like,
you want to know what's funny?
Like Beyonce would be somewhere toward the top of the list, my guy. Absolutely.
I have 3 names that I jotted down. Beyonce's on my list. I had the biggest crush on Beyonce as a kid.
As you should.
I'm envious of Jay-Z.
You want to know something even kind of not quite as, I wouldn't say cooler, but something like a little nugget here?
Yeah.
Where we are, the studio that we are right now that I'm at in Houston, through the window, I can see the grounds where I once went to elementary school with Solange, Beyonce's younger sister.
Wow.
I was 3 grades behind her, but I went to elementary school with Solange Knowles, Beyonce's sister, right as Destiny's Child was emerging as this global brand and this huge group that they were. So before Beyonce was Beyonce, B. Scott, your boy, went to elementary school with Solange. So maybe she's at the top of my list, actually. I would love to sit down.
You should have dated her.
I mean, if I wasn't 3 years behind, I mean, imagine that, man.
That's a good point.
I'm first grade. She's 4th grade. I didn't have a whole lot to offer in first grade, Zach Gibb. I'm not the guy that I am today.
It would have been worse if it was the other way. It's at least attainable since you were the younger one in that relationship or potential relationship.
Dude, wouldn't it be such a cooler radio story if I could tell you, man, that 6-year-old me pulled 9-year-old Solange and I had a real cool story to tell about it? I don't. But to go in line with our idea here, I mean, Solange, holla at your boy. We could go over to the Breakfast Club. We could go over to the Reggae Hut. We could go over to Faces.
Now we talking.
I mean, any of the spots here in Houston that you would like to frequent, I'll take you, and we could have a good time. Solange Knowles, somewhere at the top of my list, man.
So we both have Beyonce. Who else is on your list?
All right, this is gonna sound a little bit weird. I was gonna take it back to sports, and that's just because I think this guy and I would have a lot of similar conversation, or at least the words that we would use. How about Vernon Maxwell? I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know if you've heard Vernon Maxwell talk.
Yeah.
But it's not suitable for radio. But I just feel like there would be
fun.
Man, like the FCC could not be involved in any way. There would be so many like MFers and words that we cannot use here on the radio.
Have to be a podcast.
That it would be like. And the stories that he would tell about the 90s Rockets, which are near and dear to my heart for obvious reasons, I couldn't pass that up. If I could get Vern, and I almost feel like I could make this happen. Maybe I'm even kind of openly campaigning for it right here on the radio. But if I could get Vern at a bar and get a couple beers in the guy, man, I think we'd have some stories.
All right, my next one, we both have Beyonce. You have Vernon Maxwell. I'm going to go with Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen is my favorite musician of all time, him and the legendary E Street Band. I feel like Bruce would be a fun guy to go grab a beer with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, Bruce has got to have stories for days. For days, absolutely. One for
Who's your last one?
Okay. Gonna think this is funny. Could I have a beer with Uncle Dennis? Like I want to know everything. Like, and we're doing this exercise for me. I think assuming that this beer that we're having, that the other person actually wants
Truthful
to have
conversation.
Yeah, and that person wants to have I'm not twisting his arm to have a beer with me. We're living in a world where Uncle Dennis actually wants to go and have a drink with me, and I could ask him all of these questions, ask him everything that he asked for in the Kawhi negotiations. What did teams actually offer? Like, how does?
So you're telling me you aspired to have a beer with Uncle Dennis?
I aspire to have a beer with Uncle Dennis, and honestly, I'm not saying that I want to cut corners, but I aspire to have his business acumen or his entrepreneurial spirit. Like, Uncle Dennis kind of coming out of nowhere and kind of just working the system for his nephew is, dare I say, aspirational. So I'd love to have a beer with Uncle Dennis and maybe put a little bit of truth serum in the beer and really make sure I can get some good nuggets.
My last one is going to be Tom Brady, my favorite athlete of all time. But tell TB12 to stop doing the wrestling shtick. I don't need to see any more of that. Like, give me Tom Brady as a player. I think he'd be a fun guy to have a beer with. All righty. Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I was just going to say Tom Brady as a wrestler is the most comical thought that you could even come up with. I get that he's the GOAT, but a wrestler he is not.
I know we got to run. Do you think the Astros end up trading Jeremy Pena from now until August 3rd? Do they get the green light to sell?
I do not. I don't, and I think that ultimately it's going to be a mistake. Like, I could see a world where they don't trade him, and somehow they do still back their way into the postseason, somehow make a run, or at least I think, like, fool you into thinking that this season is more that there's more to this season than there actually is. And
put a little lipstick on a pig.
Exactly. Put a little lipstick on a pig, and I think try to justify what is not justifiable. But, like, just to be clear, I would start with trying to find some middle ground and see if I can actually pay Jeremy Pena. It feels like that horse has left the barn, like, if I'm just being honest about it. And if that is the case, I don't know how you can in good conscience not trade him. It's the same logic that you would apply to the Kyle Tucker trade that they made last go around when the last time this sort of similar situation came up. So I would think that they should still do the same thing here, but they did that in the offseason. So I don't think that they're going to do this at the trade deadline, to answer your question. I think Jeremy Pena is on this team for the entirety of the season.
Big thanks to Jordan Smith back in the shop. I'm Zach Gell. B. Scott, great to hang with you. Warren Moon, big thanks for joining us as well. And a big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning on in on the radio on Sports Radio 610 in Houston, or watching us on YouTube. B. Scott, I think we'll do this again next week on Sunday, right? From 12 to 3?
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. No place I'd rather be. Let's do it.
All righty. For B. Scott, I'm Zach Gell. Have a great weekend, everybody in Houston. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
In the Loop.
The Astros are at the All-Star break, so how are you feeling about them being buyers versus sellers? I feel like they can't even really be buyers, not even because of desire, but just ability. A lot of your talent in your farm system is low. And then you look at an Astros team and you just go, what do you have to sell? It has to come from what you're already using. Is it A.J. Blue? And do you...
because not even just for this year. He's still like 25.
It's Reggie Atatula and John Lopez, localizing your lunch break.